right. We recording?
Yeah, I think we're recording, man.
All right. Welcome back to Brit and Jacob the movies for episode 6. No, 5. Episode 5.
It's episode 5, man.
Yeah, episode 5. I don't know why I said 6. Episode 5. And this one, we're going to be starting our Spider-Man-a-thon, starting with Spider-Man. Came out in 2002, directed by Sam Raimi, and it stars Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Willem Dafoe, JK Simmons, a bunch of other talented people. I'm Jacob.
And I'm Britton.
All right.
But, oh man, I've been excited for this one. This one is a mutual childhood favorite of mine and Jacob's. And hopefully our childhood nostalgia won't overpower our thoughts on this film, which is still pretty positive. I think this movie still holds up pretty well. But,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, Jacob and I are going to be doing a Spider-Man-a-thon. Basically, we're going to be reviewing every Spider-Man movie that's been out. Every live-action one, anyway. I have considered putting it into the Spider-Verse, but I guess we can worry about that at some later time. But, we're talking about a bona fide classic. I mean, I can't even say much more. I mean, this movie, this is one of the first movies I really fell in love with, aside from, Finding Nemo and Star Wars, the original Star Wars movies. How about you, Jacob?
Oh, yeah. This was actually, for this and Shrek, for me, really, impacted me on so many levels. It really sparked, this film mostly sparked my desire of wanting to look more into movies, and it led me to writing stories, making little short films, and overall my love for films that is still here to this day. I still think it holds up really well, and I think there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Oh, hell yes. I should just spoil it right now. I freaking love this movie. I think, and Jacob does too, as he's noted.
Mm-hmm.
I've been I've just been chilling recently. I saw Dune yesterday, which I was like, shit. I was tempted to do a little impromptu episode, but I didn't want to put that on you, so I decided I'll just save it for some other time. But it was an interesting movie. Put it that way. I mean, I enjoyed it for the most part. But, me and Jacob were talking about it last night. But, like I said, I was tempted to do an impromptu episode and just save it for some other time, but I'm no, I don't want to put that on Jacob. Well, let's just stick with Spider-Man. And, we're doing Spider-Man, which, is there really much more I can say about this film that's already been said? We're probably going to gush about it and talk about all the memes and stuff, and it's going to be a good time. I can't wait to really bite my teeth into this.
Oh, yeah. Other than The Green Knight, this is the most excited I've been to talk about a movie on our episode, on our show.
Oh yes, I've been so thrilled because I wasn't really sure when we were going to talk about this movie. I was like, man, when are we going to bring out the favorites? Well, okay, The Green Knight's become a favorite of mine recently, but I don't know if that really counts. But I didn't know when we were going to pull out the classics and start talking about some of our formative movies like this one.
Oh, yeah.
But, I'm glad that we're talking about it now, because this movie is a classic, like I just said. What do you think, Jake? Or, well, you talked about it, but...
Oh, yeah. Aside from my nostalgia, I think this movie holds up really well. I think it's one of the best superhero origin stories ever. It's really well made, well directed, well acted. For me, this is my signs, because you know how much the movie impacted Chris Stuckman.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I am with Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, Sam, I remember my mom and I would watch the movies, and then I'd watch the behind the scenes stuff when I was a kid. A lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing that. And my mom
Oh, yeah.
really got me into it. She's pretty cool. She was like, "Oh yeah, I think you'll like the Spider-Man movie." And like I said, this one and like Finding Nemo and the original Star Wars movies and the prequels, yeah, those were formative experiences for me. Even though the prequels for Star Wars aren't that great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
Brit and Jake go to the movies, and we're talking about Spider-Man today, which I don't really know what else to say for our blurb thoughts rather than this film's a damn classic. It just oozes classic. Like, I mean, it captures. Well, actually, I'll get more into that when we actually dive into the movie. But yeah, this movie just captures the spirit of Spider-Man so well. I think this is probably the best capturing of the feel of Spider-Man in live action, maybe since Homecoming.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, this film actually had a lot to prove because this is a really refreshing take on the superhero genre.
Oh yeah, I mean,
back in the time.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Back in the time it was released, it had a lot. It had a lot to prove.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've read stories and seen the behind the scenes stuff. Like, this took a long time to make. I mean, they almost got James Cameron to do it, which in hindsight, I'm glad they didn't, because I'm sure a lot of fans would have gotten pissed off at his take on Spider-Man. Nothing to knock against James Cameron, even though he made fucking Avatar. I hate that movie. But I'm glad that he didn't make his Spider-Man, and I'm glad Sam Raimi, who had a better understanding of Spider-Man, made the Spider-Man movie.
Oh yeah. When I was born, like, I just watched this movie. I had no idea who Sam Raimi was. Then I started looking more into him. Like, oh, he made the Evil Dead movies, and he also he's mostly done horror stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, huh.
Yeah, he's mostly either done like horror or just like these weird movies, these weird like lower budget films. Which he also made my favorite horror comedy of all time, Evil Dead 2. So there's that.
Yeah.
Which Jacob, have you seen that movie? I mean, if you haven't, great film.
Oh yeah, Evil Dead 2. I love that movie.
Oh my god, it's so good. But you know what else is really good? Spider-Man.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page, which I know is kind of a grain of salt, but they almost got a lot of people considered for this movie. Like, they got Roland Emmerich, the guy who makes those really cheesy disaster films, Tim Burton, Ang Lee, Chris Columbus, I don't even know who that guy is, M. Night Shyamalan, Tony Scott, and David Fincher. That would have been weird.
Damn.
What if David Fincher directing a Spider-Man movie? I wonder what that would have looked like.
Probably would have looked very murky and
yeah, probably would have looked grungy as hell. Oh god, they have like he's probably gonna have a serial killer in it. They're gonna make a Spider-Man villain into a serial killer somewhere.
Basically, would have been 7.
Oh my god, yeah. Even though we already got 7, so I mean that's a great movie. But Sam Raimi was like, huge Spider-Man fan. He really lobbied for this, and apparently, again, according to this Wikipedia thing here, his passion for the source material in Spider-Man really got him the directing shot. And I'm so glad he got to direct this movie because, I mean, this man, he gets the feel of Spider-Man. He gets the corniness of Spider-Man because, Spider-Man is a little goofy. And this movie just isn't afraid of what it is, which I think is the most refreshing part of this film. But again, I'll get more into that as this film goes along. But, yeah, I think that's a big strength of this movie. You got a director who gets the feel of the character, and he gets actors who really appreciate this stuff, and everything just comes together nicely. I mean, it's just one of those movies, man. Like The Green Knight.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
It's like they got everybody together, and everyone was on board to do a good job, and they did, at least in my opinion.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Like, I watched the behind-the-scenes on my old DVD of the movie, which I still have, that Sam Raimi, like, as you said, was really passionate about the source material. He has said that he has had like a collection of comic books, so he definitely understands the feel of it, and he definitely understands the source material. He knows what it's supposed to be, and and he puts his unique perspective on it.
Oh yes, most definitely. And like you said, this movie was kind of a high risk one because, I mean, there have been Spider-Man things out there, like the animated TV show from the '90s, which if you I have a lot of nostalgia for that show. I mean, it is pretty ridiculous in a lot of places, but I still have a lot of fun watching it. There's also that live-action show in the '70s, which I've never seen, but I've heard it's quite wild.
Oh yeah, it is. It's definitely a funny cartoon to go and watch.
Oh yeah, and then there's also the '60s cartoon, which I've seen some stuff from it. It's just hilarious. Like it's like impressive how they managed to like replicate Steve Ditko's original style, but the animation just looks really off.
Yeah.
I mean,
talk about a sensation.
Wait, what? What'd you say?
Talk about a meme sensation.
Oh my god, yes. There's a great scene at the end of Spider-Verse, which oh man, I felt so happy inside after I saw that. When I got done, I'm like, oh man, great movie, and then that was just like the bow on top. But we're not talking about Into the Spider-Verse. But it's basically the meme in the old Spider-Man where they're pointing at each other. Oh, it's so good. But yeah, so back to Spider-Man though. But yeah, this movie was kind of a risk because superhero movies weren't as popular as they are today. I mean, the only real successful ones were the Burton Batman films, and Superman in the 70s, and X-Men, which had come out 2 years previously, which is also a pretty good movie.
Oh yeah, and Blade. Blade was also really good.
Oh yeah, I always forget about Blade. Sorry, Wesley Snipes. I don't think I've ever seen those movies like all the way through. Are they worth a watch, Jacob? Have you seen them?
The first two are Blade Trinity. You can skip that one.
Fair enough. But yes, Spider-Man is really good. I would say Spider-Man 2 is better by a little bit, but this movie's like as good of a standalone movie as you're gonna get, in my opinion.
For sure. Oh, couldn't agree more.
I mean, well, this is all opinion here, so I mean, you can feel free to say we're full of shit, but I mean, I think most people agree that these are classics. Like I remember this fondly, and it's again like Jacob said, it still holds up very well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's some CG that doesn't really work as well as it used to, but aside from that, it works out pretty good for the most part.
Oh yeah, it does. And the movie does get a lot of hate for being cheesy, but that's part of its charm.
Oh yeah, like I said, and we're probably gonna get more into this, but I think the most refreshing thing about this movie is that it embraces what it is. Like, it's not afraid to be... The MCU, I hope, probably took some notes from this in terms of just, you know what? We're going to have a good time. It doesn't matter. We're not going to be uber serious. Not that there's anything wrong with uber serious movies. I mean, we like uber serious movies from time to time. But this film is just utterly unpretentious. Like, it doesn't, have a big message or anything. It's just like, look, we love this character. We want to have a good time. And it looks like they did. And this film is a lot of fun. It really shows.
Oh, yeah. That's one of my favorite parts of Raimi's Spider-Man movies. There isn't an ounce of pretentiousness.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, there is certainly a level of detail, which, again, we'll get into. But, yeah, this film is just... It's fun. And it's not afraid to be fun. And it's not afraid to, say goofy shit, which we'll get into. But, And they're not afraid to get to the, mustache twirly aspects of some of the original Spider-Man stuff, which is very apparent in Spider-Man 2, but in Spider-Man 1, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah. I mean, we Spider-Man fans, I said this last episode, we're pretty spoiled. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we've gotten more good Spider-Man movies than bad ones, which I think is a win for a lot of Spider-Man fans.
It is. We've, mostly great movies. We've had a couple of stinkers, but for the most part, us Spidey fans, we're good.
Yeah,
we're happy.
It's like Batman fans. Like, more good movies than not. I mean, there's Batman and Robin, but, I don't actually hate that movie. A little side tangent. I don't actually hate Batman and Robin. Like, it's goofy as hell, but, I don't hate it. Like, it's kind of like, it's a fun train wreck,
Yeah, it's one of those movies.
Yeah, exactly. It's just fun to watch despite its stupidity.
Yeah, it's not fantastic where it's just bad. It's a so bad it's good type of movie.
Oh yes, most definitely. But yeah, Spider-Man. But back to Spider-Man. Spider-Man. So Spider-Man was originally a comic book that was the brainchild of the man himself, Stan Lee, and Steve Ditko. And you can definitely tell if you've read the original comics that this movie takes a lot of its tone from those original comics. I mean, the first half of the movie is basically an adaptation of Amazing Fantasy 15, which is the first Spider-Man appearance. Don't ask how I know that. But yeah, like Jacob said, this movie's got everyone going for it. This is one of those movies where everyone came together and they just had a good time. I've said that like 2 or 3 times now. We got Danny Elfman on music. We got Sam Raimi directing. We got David Cope writing it. Did a pretty good job. We got Tobey Maguire, Willem Dafoe, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Rosemary Harris, and Cliff Robertson. I mean, this is just great film.
Oh yeah, everything about this as you said, Danny Elfman composing the score, Stan Raimi directing, the cast, the casting is almost perfect.
Oh yeah, I mean we'll get to that again. I mean Danny Elfman's already gained some renown for other superhero movies he's scored, Batman, but and Batman Returns, but man. He's really great in this, but again, we'll get more into that. Yeah, this movie's just good. So, yeah. Alright, enough gushing. You want to get into this, Jacob?
Yeah, let's get into the meat of this.
Oh, hell yes. Oh, sorry. What were you going to say?
Oh, I just said I'm ready.
Oh, okay. Did you want to start on this summary, or do you want me to?
The summary of the movie. Basically what the movie's about. Okay. The movie's about Peter Parker, living an average life, gets bullied, picked on. He's a nerd, and after being bitten by a genetically altered spider, he has a lot more responsibilities to deal with, and he has these superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
He can spin web, shoot webs, climb on walls. Basically, has the powers of a spider, and that's the summary of the movie. He just goes through a bunch of difficult stuff, even more difficult stuff after he has had these powers. A lot more responsibilities to handle. And a villain comes down, and a villain comes, the Green Goblin, played by Willem Dafoe.
Oh, man. Like I said, can't wait to dive into this, because there's so much just to... But yes, so Spider-Man is basically the story of... I mean, if you don't know what Spider-Man is, I just can't talk to... No, I'm kidding. But, seriously, I don't know how many people wouldn't know who Spider-Man is, but I think Jacob put it rather nicely. Guy gets bitten by a spider, doesn't die of radiation poisoning, he ends up getting Spider-Man powers, and whips criminal ass after a while. But again. So the movie begins with a little montage. I forget if there is I forget if there's a narration or not. Do you remember, Jacob?
Oh, yes. After the montage ends, we hear Peter narrating.
Okay, that's what I thought. I remember a narration in the movie. But, so the movie basically introduces us to everybody. Okay, we meet Mary Jane Watson, played by Kirsten Dunst, We meet Flash Thompson, played by Joe. I can never pronounce this dude's last name. I apologize.
Magliano.
Magliano?
Yes.
Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate you.
No problem, man.
Which is, it is pretty ironic. I mean, he's this kind of buff, looks like a jock guy, but he's actually kind of like a nerd in real life. It's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
He's like big into D&D and stuff, which isn't bad. I play that too, but I just think that's funny. But he plays Flash Thompson, who's the guy who's constantly riding Peter's ass because he's a school bully. And we end up meeting. This is just the most beautiful way you could introduce Peter Parker. We see him just running at the bus and just banging at the door, saying, "Let me in," and everyone's laughing at him. And I'm like, "Yep, that's Peter Parker right there." Just if there's no better way they could have introduced him than like right there.
Oh yeah, couldn't agree more. Like the opening scene alone, you immediately relate to this kid.
Yeah, you immediately like feel bad for this guy.
Yeah, like you understand, like he probably gets picked on, and because he's a nerd and struggles with a lot of high school stuff, and so yeah, as I said, you immediately relate to this character.
Oh yeah, I mean it's yeah, I mean there's no better way he could have been introduced in this movie because and also Tobey Maguire plays him, and man, top notch casting right there.
Oh yeah, like he really captures that nerdiness of Peter Parker, and as I said, you feel so much sympathy for him.
Oh yeah, most definitely. The only one thing, and Chris Stuckman brought this up, and I just always thought was hilarious. He's like, I used to work on a school bus, and if the bus driver would have like refused to pull over and been like a dick to the guy, or been like, haha, stupid nerd, I'm probably gonna get fired in a few minutes. Haha, it's like, oh god. And that's the only thing that I really have an issue with, but the point gets across pretty clear, like, this guy's kind of a dweeb.
Yeah.
And Tobey Maguire, again, this dude, perfect casting. I mean...
Oh, yeah.
He just... I mean, there's, like, things that... I mean, I think Tom Holland has come close, but he's the guy who just captures that kind of awkwardness of the character.
Oh, yeah. Like, a Peter Parker, I say Tobey Maguire is still the best. Tom Holland is, like, right up close there, but Tobey Maguire holds the crown.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's great. And, again, you instantly just feel you feel bad for this kid. And he's not a bad kid, he's just kind of doing his thing and living his life. And he's got the biggest crush on this girl named Mary Jane Watson. Another great casting with Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson.
Oh, yeah.
They're also next door neighbors, which makes things hell awkward. But she's dating Flash, and they're just like, yeah, and it's the classic setup.
Oh, yeah. It's not like, oh, yeah, here's this guy gets bullied on. No, it's like very simple. Like you understand what this character is. You're like, okay, he's a dweeb, gets picked on in high school, and just lives a normal life, has high school problems, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and, he lives with his aunt and uncle, who, I mean, I don't know why they always make him freaking old, which is a little thing I thought was neat in the new movies, which is they made him younger. They de-aged him a little. Which I'm like, okay, it's nice. They don't look like their grandparents. But, yeah, he lives with his Uncle Ben, played by Cliff Robertson, phenomenally, and Aunt May by Rosemary Harris, who reminds me of my grandmother. And I don't know about you, but she reminds me of my grandma. She just has that, like, warm presence. And like, every time you see her, you're just like, oh, man, I just want to go to sleep. I'm just like, I just lay back, and I'm just like, I feel all warm inside.
Couldn't have said it better.
But, yeah. Peter basically, Oh, so the movie begins with them going on a school field trip, and Peter is a big science guy, which is, back to the comics, big science dude. He really likes science. Like, that's his thing. Like, it's what gives him self-esteem. Like, he's really smart. And, and they're just kind of hanging out, and, not too much. I think... No, he doesn't take a picture of Mary Jane till later. He does... There is also this little scene where you feel bad for him, and you see he takes... she waves at somebody, and she thinks she's waving it, and he thinks she's waving at him. No, it's just some of her girlfriends. And you're like, damn. That's really sad. Again, this film just nails the... You know what? This kid, we're gonna beat him down a little bit. They don't do it as much as in Spider-Man 2, which is just like, God damn. But in this movie, they do beat him down a little, so, which is kind of the core of Spider-Man, which is, he's kind of a loser in some ways. That's why we love him.
Oh yeah, that's why we all relate to him.
Yeah, he's just a normal guy, despite having spider powers. And then we get a scene where we meet Harry, who is played by James Franco. I know he's a bit canceled nowadays, but, he's really good in this movie. He plays Harry. He is basically Peter's best friend. Pretty close. Like, they're tight, They're thick as the... All those words. What were we saying, JK? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Just best friends, and James Franco, I think, plays him really well. I know there's been a lot of shit going on with James Franco, but all that aside, I think he played Harry Osborne really well.
Yeah, I think he captured... Harry in the comics is a little more antagonistic towards... Like, they have a really weird relationship in the comics. Like, there's times they get along, and then there's times they just, like, don't like each other. But in this, you can tell that they're friends,
Oh, yeah.
And,
they're like, tight.
Like, yeah, they're tight. And, and they both, get along pretty well. And, Harry's rich, so he's hanging out with his dad in the back of their limo, which, of course, Harry's a little... One of the things I like about Harry is he's a little self-conscious about, his status, which I really like. Because, you expect rich guys to be kind of cocky. But no, he's like kind of like, Dad, this is a little much. You think I could have just gone on the school bus like everyone else? And,
yeah.
His dad, oh man, Norman Osborn, played by the phenomenal Willem Dafoe. This is actually the first movie I discovered him from, aside from Finding Nemo. And, he's one of my favorite actors today. Probably wouldn't have happened if I didn't watch this movie first. I love Willem Dafoe, especially in this movie.
Oh, yeah. Willem Dafoe, same with you. This and Finding Nemo were the first, movies I took notice of. I was like, I got check this guy out more. Because, he's, he was fantastic as the Green Goblin in Norman Osborn. And one of the things I loved about his portrayal is that he wanted to play this role. He was really passionate about this source material.
Oh, yeah. And, and a lot of people, Willem Dafoe was already pretty well known as a bit of a highbrow actor, as they might say. He's in a lot of, movies, kind of arty films. But no, he decided to take this film because he thought it'd be a lot of fun. And, man, he plays the shit out of this character.
He just relished it.
And he's great in this movie. He captures that kind of menace of the character, but he also comes off as sympathetic at times. But again, we'll get deeper into that as this movie goes along. And I can see why people would want him to be the Joker after this movie as well.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it'll ever happen, but it would be awesome if they, cast him as Joker.
Oh, yeah, I think he's aged out of the role a bit, but, again, I've seen, this video where he's, in the makeup. Oh, man. Oh, that was a little scary, You're like, damn.
Shit.
Love that guy. But no, Willem Dafoe's great in this movie, and we first meet him. He's Harry's dad. He's just kind of this guy. he's not as like he's not as like evil as he is in the comics, because in the original comics and in some of the shows, he's already kind of this sinister guy, like before he becomes the Green Goblin. But in this movie, though, he's just kind of a normal guy. I mean, despite the fact he's this, rich guy who creates gliders. He's like, well, son, you gotta... I forget exactly what they say when they're in the car, but I remember Harry's a bit self-conscious about being in the limo. Like, come on, Dad. Like, this is a little much.
Yeah. You can tell he's uncomfortable about, like, being constantly dropped off at school by a limo instead of simply taking a bus like every other normal kid would.
Yeah. And then Harry's like, okay, I'm just gonna go now. And he's like, oh, I'll come with you. He's like, okay, fine. And so they walk up and meet Peter for the first time, which comes to one of the first big memes that this film made up. Because Harry's like, he's like, hey, Dad, this is Peter. He's like, I've heard so much about you. He's like, hello, Mr. Osborne. He's like, well, I'm something of a scientist myself. Which is, like, again, like, one of the first, like, big memes of the movie. Because they memed the shit out of these movies. I'm just gonna...
Oh, yeah. Especially Spider-Man 3.
Oh, my God, yeah. Can't wait for Spider-Man 3. No.
Oh, me too.
Oh, man. But yeah, in this movie, the memes are not quite as plentiful, but, there's a lot of great moments just like that, where he's like, I'm something of a scientist myself. And he's like, oh, cool, we're gonna go now. He's like, okay, cool. And then they, like, go off into the little area, into the science lab, which is a lot of fun. Really enjoyed that.
Oh, yeah. And something about that scene, like, you can immediately tell, like, Norman Osborn already has, like, interest in Peter more so than his son, and that creates more drama later on.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that. Thank you, Jacob. Yeah, but, we see a little more in the movie that Norman kind of has higher regard for Peter than Harry, which is kind of sad. And that also creates ripple effects for the other two movies. But, again, we'll get more into that, because this kind of subtext this side plot comes more later. More into play later. So then they go into the science lab, and, Flash and his boys are just, like, they're fucking with Peter every opportunity. It's like, it's obnoxious. And he's, like, trying to take pictures. He asks the lady helping the spider, it's a little spider thing, and he's like, hey, can I take pictures? I'm for the paper. And she's like, oh, yeah. And he starts taking it. Dudes just keep bumping into him.
Something that typical bullies would do.
Yeah, and Harry, he actually mentions this in Spider-Man 3, but Harry's all like, yo, back off, he's being a boy to... pour one out for a homie. And they're like, oh, yeah, what are you going to do? And then they almost begin a fight, but then, like, the teacher shows up, it's like, hey, you two guys quit it. Let's go,
Well, you're getting a spanking. No, I'm kidding.
One of the things I really like about the spider scene before the spider bites Peter, I love the foreshadowing in the scene. Like, I already knew that they were foreshadowing Spider-Man and his powers. Like, even when I was, like, little. Like, they were already kind of foreshadowing it when it said, like, they can carry bricks up and whatnot, and they can jump from ledge to ledge, and yada yada. I didn't know that this was actually a foreshadowing for the rest of the movie. So, good work there, Sam Raimi.
Yeah, well done. Well done.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this movie just, there's so much detail in it too.
Oh yeah, so much detail in it.
Oh my god, yeah, it's like, again, quoting our boy Chris Stuckman, he's like, they're actually like trying to make a film in this movie.
Yeah, it's made by people.
Yeah, made by people who wanted to make a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so they're jumping across, and she's showing them all the spiders, and, Peter kind of tells Harry that, so spiders like to, oh, I forget what it is. It's like a defense mechanism. You remember, Jacob?
Oh, yeah. So, kind of quoting the movie, some spiders change their colors to blend into their environment. Defense mechanism.
Yes, that's it. He tells that to Harry, and then Harry just goes over to Mary Jane and just starts telling her that. Like, bro, not cool. What a douche. No. Because Harry also likes Mary Jane as well. And he's like, I'm going to impress this girl with my science knowledge. And it's like that meme with the Eddie Murphy looking guy doing the pointing at his head like, I'm smart. Just replace it with James Franco's face. Oh, man. No, but, oh, man. So, I don't know if this happens in between the spider biting Peter, but, no, we also see a little bit of Norman's work life. He has this, assistant. Poor guy. And, you know, he's yeah, I feel bad for this guy. I know a lot of people don't really give him a second thought. And he looks like the, main supporting guy in The Shape of Water, but it's not the same guy. But, yeah, poor guy. Like, he was actually nice to Norman, and Norman actually seemed to like him. But, and he's like, yeah, this, and he's, like, explaining how the glider works, and you can see some guy gliding on it, and, you can see the Green Goblin costume. And, he's basically exploring it, but, the military's like, I don't know, I'm not really that interested in this. So Norman's kind of struggling at his workplace, basically trying to get people to invest in his products, like military gliders.
Oh, yeah. Basically, they don't support his program or support, like, his, like, military gliders. And so, like, Norman Osborne is, like, as you said, he's struggling.
Yeah, and his assistant, friend, I don't know exactly what he is. I think it's his assistant.
Yeah, I think it's his partner in some way.
Yeah, basically. Hold on here. I'm gonna try and find that guy's name. I don't know if he's there, but Ron Perkins is that guy's name. He kind of looks like I said, he kind of looks like that guy who played the gay dude in The Shape of Water, which is another great film.
Yeah, he kind of does. Funny you mentioned that.
Yeah, I remember years later, I'm like, is that the same guy? And I looked it up. Nope. Not the same dude. Though, yeah, Norman's kind of struggling, but then we're back at Peter, and Peter's trying to get to talk to Mary Jane. He's like, hey, can I take some photos of you? And, this is another part that's kind of memed, because everyone's like, oh, wow, what a weirdo. But it's like, he asked her. I don't know why everyone makes fun of that, but, you know, he asked. Like, he wasn't, like, saying, hey, I'm going to take some photos, you know. Nonetheless.
Yeah, he asked in a very polite way, unlike the Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah. Now, the Amazing Spider-Man, that's a little different, but, again, we'll get to that. Or if we ever do get to that, I'm sure we'll get to that. I actually counted the weeks, and I think we can fit all of them, hopefully.
Yeah, I think we can manage.
But yeah, back to the movie. So we end up noticing, that one of the spiders is gone, and you're like, shit. And Peter's kind of just walking around, taking photos of Mary Jane, and then Flash, I think Flash comes over, is like, hey, come here, or whatever. Oh, dude, dumbass. Fuck that guy. But, But I really like the suspense leading up to the spider biting Peter. I don't know about you, but when I watched it like years later, like that's a good I was still a little bit on the edge of my seat when I see that scene. Which I know isn't like the most like terrifying thing in the world, but they do it really well. The build up to when the spider bites Peter.
Oh yeah, as we say on this show, it's all about execution. The execution of the spider leading up to biting Peter. Like when I was younger, I was always on the edge of my seat, just like, oh shit. Even though I knew what was going to happen, but I was still like, oh my god.
Yeah. Aside from the Amazing Spider-Man, where just a bunch of spiders crawl on him, that was memorable. Anyway, so Peter kind of goes around and is like, okay, cool, walking around, and then the spider slowly crawls down, and it's webbing down, and Peter's like, oh man. And then it like crawls on him a little bit, and then it finally bites him, and you're like, oh shit. And he's like, ah! And he swipes that thing off, and it just like scurries off. Which again is right off of the original comics, aside from gigantic lines of dialogue like, oh, a spider bit me! You know. But I digress. But, yeah, spider biting him. Now, I know it's not really a big payoff, but it's like, damn. Or, well, I guess the payoff's a little later, but we'll get to that. But, yeah, he's just like, ah, shit. And it, like, crawls away.
Oh, yeah.
And the spider's like, later. Just gave you superpowers. Don't mind me. I'm surprised, like, no one's like, hey, one of the spiders is gone, or did they? I just didn't catch it. I don't know.
No one even, like, mentioned, like, oh, one spider's gone. No, wait, oh, yeah. Mary Jane mentioned it. She's like, there's 14 and one's missing.
Oh, yeah. I missed that. Again, you know, Sam Raimi, back to that meme where he's like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. But, yeah, fuck. So the spider bites Peter, and he's like, ah, shit, okay. So that happened. And, Peter, now I'm just kind of like, it's kind of weird. But, like, when I was a kid, like, that kind of creeped me out when I was younger, when he, like, returns home, and then he has that that fever dream.
Oh, no. No, like, scenes, like, that scene, like, you can definitely tell this is a Sam Raimi movie, for sure.
Oh, yeah, like, not really, like, it's not like a horror moment, but it's just, like, weird. Like, it's just in this, like, fever dream, and he's all sweaty, and it's, like, really weird. And he's, like, pulling the covers up on him, and he tells his aunt and uncle, he's like, oh, yeah, school was good, I'm just gonna go upstairs. And I'm gonna go to sleep. And he goes to sleep, and he has, like, this weird dream about spider crawling into his DNA, and it's a weird scene.
Oh, yeah. It is really weird. It's definitely a Sam Raimi scene for sure.
Oh,
like,
yeah, most definitely.
Like, I watch that scene, I'm like, yeah, it's a Sam Raimi movie.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I mean, you know, he's crawled up in his bed, and he's all just like, you know. And then we switch to Oscorp, where Norman and his friend, his assistant guy, are testing out stuff because they're like, man, you know, this stuff is pretty dangerous. You know, you could drive you insane. And Norman, being the scientist with hubris, is like, I'm sure it'll be fine. And then it's like, and again, Willem Dafoe just chews the scenery. I just love the little touches he puts, capturing the just kind of over the top nature of the character. He just like drinks the little serum, and just throws it on the ground.
Man, I love Willem Dafoe so much.
Oh my god, yeah, he's so good in this, and he's just like, here, oh yeah, he says back to formula, which we'll get back to later, but then he's like, hey, put me back in this machine and spray me with a bunch of gas, it'll definitely not go wrong, and, of course, his assistant's like, dude, I don't want to kill you, like, this might kill you, he's like, dude, it's fine, it's fine, don't worry, everything's under control, I'll let you know, like, I'll tap, okay, I'll tap, and he's like, fine. So, this is also really like, this scared me when I was a kid, but,
Oh, me too.
but when, like, but then he puts on the gas, he's like, okay, this is going fine, and then it starts, like, going haywire, and then he's like, oh dear, and he looks up, and he's just, like, convulsing on the like, rack where he got him, and that scared me, like, I don't know about you, but that scared me as a kid. Like,
no, that terrified me when I was younger. There was a lot of scenes in this movie that terrified me, but this scene,
Sam
this
Raimi
scene really
traumatizing us since we were 6 or 7 years old. Oh man. And but yeah, he's like convulsing, and the guy's just like, oh my god, he's reacting luckily how anyone would. He's just like, oh my god, he's dying on the ground. I can't let him die. He's my boss. And, gotta give a credit to this guy. He actually seems like he cares about Norman. It's not just like, my boss, you know? He's like, oh my god. And then he just dies for a second. Which dying isn't funny, but he just, like, flatlines, and he's like, oh my god. So he runs over, and he's like, Norman? And then he just, like, feebly just goes, And then it's like, the tension just ramps up, and then it just goes, da-da-da-da, bam, beep, 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 and then he just, like, wakes up, grabs his neck, and just goes, and just says the iconic line, back to formula, and just throws him out the window. You're like, oh, shit, like, that also scared me when he wakes up, and just, like, grabs him, like, oh my god.
Oh, yeah, and Willem Dafoe just, like, this, like, he knew, like, it was the time to go batshit insane, and he really relished it.
Oh my god, he just goes for it, man. And he just, like, jumps onto the thing and just goes, like, and it just jumps off, and then we switch to Peter waking up.
No, I remember, like, when I was little, I was, like, terrified of that scene, and when we get back to Peter, I'm like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, thank God, it's over. Oh, man. And, I mean, again, Willem Dafoe, man, phenomenal performer. And some more snobbish might say it's a little something below his pay grade, but, man, he acts the shit out of this movie. Like, he takes it just as seriously as you take any other movie he'd put his mind to. And, again, that's what we love.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of passion in this movie.
Oh, yeah. Like, Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, like, I can't imagine anybody else playing this character. Like, he is so fucking good in this movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, him and that guy from Spectacular Spider-Man, best Norman Osborn. In my opinion, anyway. I would say the game, but I don't think he's going to be the Green Goblin because he seems more like a good-intentioned guy. And in these movies, and in the movie in Spectacular Spider-Man, Norman Osborn isn't a good-intentioned guy.
No.
But yeah, so Peter's up and about, and you want to take over? I'm going to do something real quick. I'll be right back.
Yeah. We see Peter wake up. And then he realizes, he wakes up, grabs his glasses, and he realizes that his vision is perfectly fine. He doesn't need the glasses anymore. Then he looks in the mirror and realizes he's fucking ripped. Which, Chris Stuckman did point out this, like, nitpick, I would say. It doesn't really bother me that he should be more shocked by his body transformation. But I never mind it. Like, if I were in Peter's shoes, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, yeah, I'm fucking ripped in shape. Who cares?
I actually think it's kind of I'm back, but I think it's actually kind of a realistic thing where he's like, I'm strong now, but that's just me.
No, like, I feel most of us would be like, yeah, I'm ripped. I'm in shape now. Who cares how it happened?
I'm gonna beat Flash Thompson's ass.
Yeah.
and also another quotable line. And she's like, Peter, are you okay in there? And he's like, yep, big change. He just like walks down the stairs. But yeah, he says big change.
Yep, big change, Aunt May. Big change.
Yep. And he then does this like little acrobatic trick off the wall and comes down, and he's like, oh, and then Uncle Ben, like your granddad's like, oh, you startled me, Peter. Or he calls him Michelangelo. He's like, oh, yeah, you startled me, Peter. Yeah.
I thought you were sick.
Thought you were sick. And then Peter's like, oh, I feel much better. He's like, oh, that's good. But yeah, so Uncle Ben and Peter and Aunt May have a moment, and Uncle Ben, played by Cliff Robertson, very well, and you can definitely see how Cliff Robertson, because Uncle Ben's very much the legacy character, like he's the guy who inspires Batman, or not Batman, Spider-Man, kind of like how Batman's parents inspire him to be Batman. And, you know, he has that kind of grandfatherly presence. He's very warm, and, you know, he cares about Peter. You know, he's a good guy.
Yeah, and Cliff Robertson, rest in peace to him. Like, he did an excellent job as Uncle Ben.
Oh, yeah, and Rosemary Harris, again, she's phenomenal as Aunt May. And, again, she always reminds me of my grandmother, because she just has that, like, kind of warmth to her.
Oh, yeah, which every grandmothers in movies should have.
Oh, yeah.
Feeling.
Indeed. And I actually looked up and I'm like, damn, she's still alive. Like, she's still kicking. Good for you, Rosemary Harris.
She's still in there.
She's still kicking. But yeah, so Peter's woke up and he's realized he's changed, and he goes to school, which, you know, if there's one thing I remember hearing that Sam Raimi's good at, it's cringe stuff. And yeah, that's definitely true, because like when he plays the like when Peter starts figuring out his spider powers and like accidentally throws it on Flash, like I can't help but just like squirm every single time. Like I don't know why that always makes me go off, but I don't know. It's just like it always makes me uncomfortable when I watch that scene.
Oh, nah, it's like because like Peter doesn't like know he like has super strength and all that.
And I think that I was about to say I think that's the point of the scene, but continue what you were saying.
Oh yeah, like Peter's fucking terrified because he doesn't realize he has super strength and spider powers. So like he's fucking like terrified because he pissed off Flash Thompson, his bully in high school. So he's like, yeah, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Yeah, and like he's his fork stuck on his hand, and you know, like he accidentally webs a plate and then he throws it at Flash Thompson, and Flash gets all pissed off, you know, as you would if you got food thrown on you.
Yeah.
And Peter's like, damn. Well, I'm fucked. So he walks off and he's like, what is going? Or no. Oh no, there was another scene before that where Peter just like notices Mary Jane slip on something, and then he gets her, and then he gets all the stuff on her plate, which apparently was actually a real practical effect, by the way. They just put like magnets on the stuff.
Oh yeah, like there was a behind the scenes like someone like talking about that. I was like, damn, like if that was like a one take scene, then like good job.
Yeah, good job, Toby. Like, damn, you know. But yeah, earlier he like his spider sense kicks in and he like notices she slips and he catches her and then catches all the stuff. Which again, I heard it was a practical effect, and if it was, super impressive.
Oh yeah,
because I'm sure that took so many takes. Like I bet Toby dropped the thing. He's like, fuck, you know.
Yeah.
But no, he's just like, oh, dear Lord. So, yeah, he accidentally webs Flash. He's like, okay, I'm gonna leave. And then he leaves, and then the plate just shimmies against the door, which makes the uncomfortableness of the scene even more apparent. Which, again, I think was the point of the scene, was to just, like, capture Peter's discomfort with this new phenomenon that's going on.
Yeah, he's like, what the fuck's happening to me? Web
Yeah.
shooting out my hand?
Yeah, and he's just, like, he's, like, checking his hand, and then he's just, like, hanging out at his locker, and then he hears, and then, like, the spider sense. I really like how the spider sense is done in the movie. It's like this, it's like everything slows down, and it's just like, it's like super detail. Like, there's a dude throwing a spitball at somebody, and there's a guy flying a plane, and then there's a fly, and then we get the slow-mo of Flash punching at Peter, and Peter, of course, just, whoop, just goes off to the side.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love the usage of the spider sense in the movies, in Sam Raimi's movies. It's everything that I've wanted, like, a spider sense to, like, that's how I wanted to be executed. Like make it like dramatic. Put the noise in there, and yeah, that little scene where like everything slows down, and then we see Flash Thompson, which is also like another meme.
Yeah.
There was one meme where they added the Falcon Punch audio.
Yeah. Oh man, that's good. I didn't know that. That's like I actually didn't know that. And Peter's like confused, and he's just like moving around, and you know, Mary Jane, of course, she kind of feels bad for Peter, so she's like, come on, it was an accident. He's like, I'm gonna break all his teeth, that'll be the accident. And Harry shows up. He's like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, and Peter's like, I don't want to fight you, Flash. And Flash's like, I wouldn't want to fight me neither.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. He's like, I wouldn't want to fight me neither. And he just, like, punches at him, and then he just, like, flops over. And it's like, some Michael Jackson type of shit right there. But apparently, like, Michael Jackson wanted to play Spider-Man at one point, which, that would have been weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. That was true.
Oh God, I'm a little. He's like, "Hey there, criminal," you know.
Then when a criminal tries to like punch him, he'll just like break dance and do the thing.
Oh God, this show's gone off the rails. But yeah. But, yeah, so maybe that was a little implicit reference to Michael Jackson, but I'm probably just stretching now. But I'm probably going into tin hat territory, as I like to say, so. But, so Peter is blocking everything, and Mary Jane's like, Harry, go help him. And Harry's like, with what? Or, like, he's like, or he says something, I forget exactly what he says, but, do you remember, Jacob?
No, yeah. Mary Jane's like, Harry, help him. He doesn't say anything until, like, Peter, like, fucking, like, punched him across the hallway. And he's like, oh, that was amazing, Peter.
Yeah, and then he backflips over some other guy who's, like, running at him. I don't know what his intention was, but, yeah, that happened. So you're like, oh, okay, that was weird, but carry on. And then Flash just, like, punches at Peter, and he just dodges it, and he, like, captures his hand, and he just, like, flings him back, and then wins the fight.
Okay, yeah.
And for good measure, some teacher accidentally drops his lunch on Flash, and it's very nice.
Oh, yeah.
Which I was always like, I'm like, God, what is that he's eating? Is that, ugh, you know?
I never knew what that was. Like, oh, it's chocolate pudding.
I don't know what it was either, but it was like, ugh. But, yeah, so Peter wins that fight. I think we get to the scene where Norman, after his little breakdown last night, He wakes up in his apartment, just like completely disoriented, and some people come in like, "Oh, hey, what's up, Norman? You look like shit." And he's like, "I'm fine. What's wrong?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, your assistant guy, he died, and someone stole the equipment from you." And he's like, "What? What?" And then they're again back to something that just completely terrified me as a kid. There's a little jump scare in there where it flashes back to when he's having a seizure on the table thing he was on, and you're like, "Ah!" It's like that scene in The Dark Knight when the fake Batman just drops in front of Richard from Lost. It's like, I don't know about you, but that still got me. Like, I saw it, like, I knew it was coming, but then it was like, gah! It was like, yeah,
No, when I first watched this movie, I jumped out of my bed. I was like, oh!
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, like, cry or anything, but I was like, yeah,
Yeah, that was an unexpected jump scare.
Yeah, but
in a way. I wouldn't say a jump scare, but...
But then Norman's just like, oh, that's unfortunate. And, like, I don't know, I think it's like a split personality.
I think it is.
Because it's like, Norman just, like, doesn't remember anything. He's just like, oh, it happened. Okay.
No, I think Sam Raimi makes it kind of clear that it's like a split personality.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. I think he makes it more clear in one scene, which we'll get into once we get more into the movie.
Yeah, and but yeah, I just wanted to mention that scene. Norman realizes someone, him, stole the flight equipment and the suit and the glider. Basically, he's gonna go in the ruin.
His assistant is dead.
Oh yeah, and his assistant is dead. So yeah, everything's fucked for Norman at the moment. But, so Peter stops fighting, he didn't stop fighting, but he ends up running from the school, and Harry's like, oh my god, that was amazing, where'd you learn how to do that? And, of course, Peter's like, I'm leaving. And, Peter ends up going across, like, some alleyway somewhere, and ends up looking at his hands, and I'll never forget this shot, but it's like, little things are just growing out of his fingers, and it's like really weird.
Oh yeah. When I first watched that, I was like, "Ooh, that's so like disgusting, but cool."
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, it's so weird, but I kind of dig it at the same time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, ah. And then there comes another iconic scene where he's like, okay, alright. And he goes, done. 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 And he starts climbing up the wall. And it's back to Danny Elfman. His score in this movie is amazing. Just gotta...
Oh, yeah.
Just,
Oh, yeah. Like, that scene, like, I remember I would, try to do... I would try to do it as a kid. And I would even, do the done, done, done.
Yeah, I know, me too. I love that scene so much where he's just crawling slowly up. And I remember watching Chris Stuckman, and he would talk about it, and he was like, oh, man. Like, I love it. You love it. I think everyone who's seen this movie loves that scene.
And try to react that scene themselves.
Yeah, or tried to do that themselves. And let me tell you, I tried it, and wouldn't recommend it, but if you have, some stairs, you can probably do it up there. But yes, a lot of fun. But, so, Peter, I think he comes to the realization that, oh, this spider was special, and he gave me these powers. And, I think this is what happens right after, because he goes up, and then he just goes, whoa! And then another iconic scene, he just jumping across rooftops, and he's just having a time of his life, man.
Oh, yeah. That scene was that was a lot of fun. I remember just, having a smile on my face, and especially the scene where he just stops, and he's like, woo-hoo!
Yeah. And I think is the most like appropriate response is just, I'm really excited about this.
Powers now.
Which I think that's how most kids would react if they got spider powers. They'd probably be like, cool, just go with it.
Oh yeah, and leaping like off every building.
Yeah, and then we come to another great scene where he stops and he's like, okay, like I webbed earlier, I'm gonna have to figure out how to do this. And in this really hilarious scene, Peter tries to shoot a web. You want to take it from here, Jacob?
Oh man, yeah, man, that scene. Kudos to you, Sam Raimi. Like, the execution of that scene was so brilliant. Peter's like trying to figure out how to shoot his web. He's like, "Go web, fly up and away, web, Shazam!" And he's like doing a bunch of different like hand gestures to see if there's a way to like shoot his web. Then
Yeah, it's so funny. It's just like, bam, boom,
I love
go
that
web, go. He's like trying so hard too. You're like, oh man, I love this guy.
Man, oh, I love that scene so much.
Yeah, and then he finally does it, and it's like, and it just comes out, and I don't know why, but I don't know. The webbing always looked kind of weird, but that's a little nitpick for me. But another neat thing that Sam Raimi did is that he gave him natural webs, aside from just him making webbers, because he felt might stretch it a little bit if he had the time, because this is supposed to be some normal dirt poor kid from New York, so
the organic web, it makes it more realistic because he is poor. Like, how could he create web strips if he has no money?
Precisely, and I think it works for this one. I actually thought that's what Spider-Man had at first, till I realized he had the web shooters, which you're like, okay.
Oh yeah,
but
I've always thought he had organic web shooters, but then I watched the '90s Spider-Man cartoon. I'm like, oh, he had web shooters.
Oh, I'm like, Stan Lee, why didn't you think of giving him just organic web shooter? But whatever. But then Peter gets the just webs across. He gets it across and he holds on to it, and then he's all like, "Cheerio," and then he just like falls, and he's like, "Oh!" And
another hilarious scene.
There's a lot of Tobey Maguire yelling in these movies, so you might want to get used to that. And he's like, "Oh!" And then he like hits really hard on the wall and then falls down. And then it just ends.
Goes into his mouth.
The thing that always I thought was funny about the scene is that it just ends. Like, it just ends with him falling. It's not like, Oh
yeah, they didn't make it like, here are a couple of people trying to help him up. No, it just ends, and he just runs back home.
Yeah, he's like running back home, and he's like, oh man, and he's like, oh man. And then he sees Uncle Ben left him a little note, and he's just chilling. And I think he goes to sleep, and he gets up the next morning. And we end up seeing a little later that Mary Jane does not have a very happy home life. Her dad's kind of an asshole, which I never really thought about growing up. But now you're just like, damn, it's kind of fucked up.
Oh yeah. Sam Raimi also did a really good job of making like Mary Jane relatable instead of making her like this like pretty face. Like, as you said, she has an abusive father and her home life is terrible. You relate to her as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think she's really good in this movie. I think a lot of people don't give her credit. They're like, she's the chick that he has to save all the time. But no, like, she's like a person and she has like feelings and whatnot. And
yeah.
And there's also this really great scene where, Peter witnesses, I don't know what they're saying to each other, but it's not nice. And he's all like, yeah, run away like you always do, kind of thing. Then Peter follows Mary Jane, and there's just like this really nice scene that I always thought was really relatable, where Peter just she stops, and then he stops. And then he just kind of acts out what he'd say to her. And it's kind of beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just them talking about, like, what they're going to do with their lives after they graduate. And it's just, like, it's a really nice scene, as you said.
Yeah, that's also a really good scene. But then she ends up getting picked up by her friends, and I think after that, no, that was the scene before when they had that conversation. I think when Peter was talking to himself, that was early. I don't know. We're trying to touch as much as we can on this.
Oh, no. When, like, Mary Jane, when Flash drives up to her house, and Mary Jane goes in, Peter just says, like, cool car. That's when we get into the montage sequence.
Oh, yes. And then we get to the montage sequence where Peter's, like, coming up with the suit and what it's going to look like, and... Or no, I think that's later.
No, it's, like, immediately, like, after he says, cool car, and we see him, like, he's trying to, like, figure out, like, a way to, like, make money.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, he's trying to figure out how to... Because, you know, one of the things is Peter is not really selfish, but he kind of gets this opportunity, like, he's like, I can do this little side gig, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, and Spider-Man is just, and, of course, Peter creates this little, like, silk suit. Not silk, but, he creates, like, this little suit. And it's kind of funny, but, you know, it's like, you know what? And we all begin somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I will say, that scene where he's, like, trying to, like, figure out costume design, that scene, like, inspired me to, like, get into art.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm like, that seems fun.
And then he just kind of, yeah, Peter just kind of looks around and he's like, all right, so he makes this, like, little amateur suit before he gets, like, the web suit, which, of course, you know, is iconic. And, so Peter, this, like, I'm gonna go into this pro wrestling thing, which is, like, the most over-the-top kind of a riff on WWE. Just this, like, utterly ridiculous, like, people are just getting thrown off the ring, but again, I'll get to that a little later. But Peter's like, I'm gonna try and give this pro wrestling thing a shot, and he tells his uncle, like, hey, I'm gonna go to the library, air quotes. And Uncle Ben's like, okay. And Uncle Ben takes him in his car, which, a little fun fact about that car, that is in every single Sam Raimi movie.
Oh, yeah. Another great Chris Stuckman quote. He pointed that out in his Evil Dead review. He's like, that's in every Sam Raimi movie. In the Evil Dead.
Apparently it was like a car that belonged to Sam Raimi, and he just kept it, and that just became like his thing. Like Alfred Hitchcock being in the background of the movies, you know? Or Stan Lee cameos, which we do get one of those in this movie.
And Bruce Lee not Bruce Lee, Bruce Campbell cameos.
Oh yeah, and Bruce Campbell cameo. And, it's very memorable in this, but again, we'll get to that. And Uncle Ben is kind of concerned about Peter. He's like, hey, I heard about that fight you had. And Peter, of course, is being really defensive. And I love Tobey Maguire's delivery in this scene, because he's just almost like kind of defensive, but he's like, I don't know, it's just, his delivery's always been funny to me in that scene.
No, oh yeah, I agree. Like, I think he pulled out the, like, man, get off my back. Like, what was I supposed to do, run away?
Yeah, exactly, and then he's all like, and I just love when I just don't know why, but I think it's always hilarious when he's like, do you think I'm gonna become some kind of criminal? Like, it's like, I don't know why, just the way he says that is just fucking hilarious. But anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Then Uncle Ben is like, hey man, and gives him the the old line that we all know and love, with great power comes great responsibility.
Oh yeah. Sam Raimi, he nailed the great power comes great responsibility, and it didn't feel like tacked on. It felt absolutely necessary.
Yeah, like, again, Amazing Spider-Man 2. Or not Amazing Spider-Man 2, but the first one. Where it's like... Again, we'll get to that when we get to Amazing Spider-Man. But I think Cliff Robertson made it so natural. It wasn't just like a, hey, Peter, here's this. I'm going to go die now. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
It was like he was having a conversation, and he just it just came to him, It's beautiful scene.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Telling him, like, just because you can't beat him up doesn't give you the right to. And he delivers a great power, great responsibility line. And then Peter's, like, just as, like, I'm trying to figure this out. Are you afraid I'm going to turn into some kind of criminal? Stop lecturing me.
Yeah, and then he, like, gets out of the car, and, of course, it's kind of a bittersweet scene. Or not bittersweet scene. It's kind of sad scene later, but we'll get to that. And, oh yeah, so Peter's plan is that he's going to try and impress Mary Jane by getting a car for her. So he's like, I'm going to go into this wrestling tournament thing. And like I said before, this wrestling tournament, like, this scene used to make me kind of cringe when I was younger, but now I just think it's fucking hilarious, because it's like this, it's just this over-the-top WWE, just, everyone is just getting thrown off the ring, and it's just... And it's like the scene where Peter's dancing in Spider-Man 3. I used to not like the scene all that much, but now I just love it because it's just fucking hilarious.
Oh yeah, like the when we get to the wrestling, I've always thought that scene was funny.
Oh yeah, it's just, and it's like, and we get an appearance from the legend himself, Randy Macho Man Savage. And he's freaking hilarious in this movie. He's just being himself, basically. He plays Crusher Hogan, I think, which is the guy's name. Or his name's Bonesaw, I think, in the movie.
Bonesaw.
And he's all like, ooh, yeah, I'm gonna throw you off, little spider. And, he's doing his Macho Man Randy Savage thing.
As you said, he's basically Randy Savage, except his name is Bonesaw.
Yeah, he's basically just playing himself, which is fine. Like he didn't need to be anything else. He got some free reign there.
Yeah,
but
just be yourself.
He's like, yeah, just do like how you do it if you're playing it, and the fans are really just like. Again, this is like a really just over the top, like super nasty. Like they're throwing shit at him, and they're like, yeah, like, break that guy's back. And some dude's like, oh my god. He's like dressed up in a goat costume. He's like, oh my god, my legs. And you're like, what the hell is this? Like, it's so...
And Peter's like terrified.
And Peter's just so mortified by the whole thing. Like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have gotten into this.
Like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah, it's just like top 10 greatest anime mistakes, like right there, like before disaster. Then we also get a cameo from Octavia Spencer. She plays like the lady who, signs everybody up, and she's like, like, or I don't know. Everyone's a dick in this scene.
Yeah. I remember Octavia Spencer. She was like, there's no way you're going to survive this small fry. She's immediately like, next. And you're like, no, sign me up.
Yeah, it's one of those scenes, like, which is one of the things I like the most, is that people don't really take Peter seriously, and then he kind of goes like, oh, yep, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
And, this scene is just, oh my god. This scene is insane. Man. I'm just gonna point that out. Like, this movie's crazy. Like, this part of the movie is crazy, but, like, it's freaking hilarious. Just, like, he's, like, everyone's so mean, and they're just, like, throwing shit at him, and, like, his, like, lady friends are, like, mocking him, and they're like, oh my god, it's like, you're just like, Jesus.
Like, holy shit. Like, insanity. Like, everyone is, like, a piece of shit.
Oh, yeah.
To him.
I mean, I thought Oklahoma sports fans could be nasty, but wow, these people are really wow. Yes. But before Peter gets a litany of abuse, he stands in the background and he comes up with the name the Human Spider, and this is where the Bruce Campbell. This is probably my favorite cameo of his in these movies, because he just plays the what's the announcer guy? Who Let's Get Ready to Rumble guy? He basically plays that guy. And he just chews that scenery in that one scene where he's like, "What's your name, kid?" And he's like, "The Human Spider." He's like, "Seriously, that's all you got?" "Yeah, man, that's my name." And he's all like, "That sucks." And then he like walks up. He's like, "The Terrifying, the yada." I forget exactly what he says, but then he says, "The Amazing Spider-Man," and then he just like flips up. And it's just him, and he's like, and he gets all pissed off that he flubbed his name. He's like, "Dude, my name's the Human Spider." He's like, "I don't care, get out there." He's like, "No, we got my name wrong." I was like, "Get out there, you jack off." And everyone's like, "Boo!" So it's just, again, they're just throwing shit at him, and they're like,
I just love this scene. It's like pure insanity.
oh yeah, it's just like, oh my lord. And then he like walks up there, and it's like, Macho Man, of course, is just like, he's hyped up for the fight, of course. He's like, "Ooh, yeah, I'm gonna break you up, little spider. Yeah," that thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's one scene. The one little thing. The crowd is like, "Cage, cage, cage," because he's Spider-Man, but Peter's just like, "I just signed up for a cage match."
Oh yeah. When he gets up there, he's like, "I got you for 3 minutes." He's like, 3 minutes for cake time, or I forget exactly what he says. But and also we get to see Spider-Man's witticisms, which we don't get a lot of in the Raimi movies, which I don't mind all that much.
No, Chris Stuckman made a reason on why he doesn't make jokes that much, and it's like really I thought the exact same thing, but yeah, his little line delivery where he's like when Randy Savage is like, "What are you doing up there?" He's like, "Staying away from you." That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
It's so fun. I love that scene too, where he's like, "How'd you get up there?" And he's all pissed off. He's all red. It's like, oh my god, dude, you might want to sit down. Looks like you're about to have a heart attack, dude. And he's all like, "Staying away from you," and you're like, and he said what you said, and it's like, he's like, "Yeah," and he's like, he's trying to like jump up there, like he's gonna get up there somehow. And then Peter, like, jumps down, and he just defeats him, even though he, like, hits him with the chair a couple of times. And it's like, damn. Which is another thing. The violence in this movie, oh boy. Like, Spider-Man gets his ass handed to him a lot in this movie.
Oh, yeah. Especially the final fight, which we'll get into very soon.
Yeah. And so Peter ends up defeating Randy Savage. Oh man, which again, it's just I love this scene. Now I do, but now, I used to hate it again when I was a kid, but now I really love it. But he defeats him, and he's like, but then he's all like, "It's the Spider-Man wins!" And he's just like, and Peter's so excited, and I love Tobey Maguire's that you can just see from his eyes. He's just so thrilled for once that he's like won at something.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I won. Randy Savage, like just him like screaming and just like, yeah. I just love that.
Yeah, and everyone's like, "Yeah, Spider-Man!" And even this crowd who was just throwing shit at him earlier, now just like,
they're like, "Yeah, Spider-Man!
I always liked that kid." It was just like the equivalent of just, I always knew that kid had something special,
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god. This movie's crazy. But, or that scene is anyway. So, Peter wins, and then he goes to get his money from this jerk-off payer guy, promoter guy, and he just completely rips him off, and he's just like, and Peter's like, "Well, what the hell?" Like, he's like, "What the hell, man?" And then he says, like, he's like, "Well, I'm sorry, but that's not my problem." And he's like, "Fine, dummy."
Yeah, like he gives him $100 bill, but the ad said 3,000, and he's like, "You have to pin him in 3 minutes, but you pinned him in 2. You give him 100. I'm giving you 100."
Yeah, and then he says like the yada yada, but that's not my problem. I forget exactly what the line is, but it's still same thing. And Peter is pissed off, of course, and he, of course, is walking away. And then the worst thing that could happen, this robber guy, who is played by the most hateable dude of all time. Like, I don't know, this guy playing the robber in the movie, this dude's such a dick.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, like, he just grabs his gun and he's all like, put the money in the bag. And then he just, like, pistol whips him, and he just gets the money, and he's running. And he's like, hey, he's got my money! And this cop's like, stop that guy! And then Peter's like, alright, I'll let him escape, because fuck that guy. And then Peter lets the dude escape, and the guy's like, what the hell did you do that for? You let him go! He's like, someone call the cops! And then the promoter comes up and is like, what the hell, man? Now that dude's got away with all my money. And he's like, well, sorry, man. It's not my problem.
Oh, yeah. Peter quotes his line that he said, I missed the part where that's my problem. Like, back at you.
Yep. And Peter leaves. And then we get probably the most heart-wrenching scene in the movie, where Peter's walking home, and sadly, or he walks back to the library where he expects Uncle Ben to pick him up, and sadly, there's been something has happened, and Peter's like, oh no, what's going on? And then he sees, sadly, Uncle Ben has been shot, and man, great scene. It's just well done.
Oh, yeah. Like, very heart-wrenching, and, like, both of their performances, excellent. And I know Peter's crying face has become a meme, but no, he really did a good job.
Another meme is Peter's crying, but, no, like, it's actually pretty well done. Like, the scene where Cliff Robertson's like, Peter, it's, like, so sad. You're just like, oh my god.
Oh, yeah. So heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
It still gives me the...
And Peter is, of course, devastated that his father figure is dead. And Peter gets pissed and just goes on a rampage as Spider-Man. And
tries to find the killer.
Yeah, I'll admit, when he actually like jumps up on the wall and starts crawling around, that doesn't really hold up as well anymore. But it's still like fine. Like, you know, it's like, the rest of this movie's pretty good. So I won't nitpick too much.
Oh. But, that scene where, like, Peter's trying to find Uncle Ben's killer, like, that is one of the most riveting and suspenseful scenes I've ever seen. It like, still to this day. I was so... Even when I was younger, I was like, man, like, my hands were tightening. I was like, man, this is so suspenseful. I love it.
Oh, yeah, like, it's a great scene. He's just, like, it's like, you know, like, it's crescendo, I think is the term. Where it's just like, it's just high rollicking, you know, and you can tell Peter's pissed off, he's gonna go take this dude down, and that's what he does. And, again, the violence in this movie is really intense, like, you know, for a movie of this magnitude. Not that this movie's, like, super, like, gory, like some of Sam Raimi's other movies, but, yeah, this movie's a little, it's a bit dark at points.
Oh yeah, which is what I love so much about the Raimi movies.
Yeah, he just goes, yeah, and like when he bashes his head into the wind, like that shit looks like it really hurts. You know, it's like, ugh.
Oh yeah, and you can like feel Peter's rage.
Oh yeah, and he's all like, "Come on, man, give me a chance, give me a chance." And he's all like, "What about my uncle? Did you give him a chance?" And he's all like, bah! And then he's all like, "Well, did you?" And then the tragic irony being that was the same guy who Peter let get away just a few minutes ago. And he's like, shit. And it's like this super dramatic like flashback, and it's really well done.
Oh yeah, Sam Raimi, like, he pulled off, like, the whole Uncle Ben, great power comes great responsibility scene, as I said, and Uncle Ben's death, and Peter realizing the irony, like, Uncle Ben's murderer was a guy I let go.
Yeah, well, until Spider-Man 3, but again, we'll get to that. But he just, you know, Peter, of course, is shocked by the revelation that this guy is the same man who he had let escape. But but then the guy takes advantage of his shock and just points the gun at him like, see ya. And then Peter just takes his arm and just, again, just like, like, even though I don't like this guy, you're like, damn, it looks like that hurts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like Sam Raimi, like, even, like, that scene, that was like, shit. Like, that's kind of brutal. No, yeah.
Not like in an uber gory way, but it's like, damn, like, it's like that shit looks like it really hurts. You know?
Oh, no, yeah. Not in, like, a dread way, but, yeah. It was like, ooh.
Yeah, and, of course, Peter grabs a guy, and then he trips and he falls, and then he dies. It's like, oh, okay, that happened. Or I think he dies. I think he died.
Oh, yeah, he's dead.
Oh, yeah. So then, on the meanwhile, we see Norman has completely lost his mind and deems a suit and just blows everything, and just blows a bunch of shit up from his corporate rival. And I like that scene because it's just like, and it's that same general from earlier, and he's like, oh yes, it's very, oh yes, it looks very nice, and yada yada. And then Norman just shows up and just starts blowing everything up. And the guy's just yelling. And it goes into his mouth. And then it's, everyone's like, it's graduation.
Yep. You mean like graduation day.
Yep. And, yeah, he's basically murdered everybody. And then he gets up the next day. He's like, I don't freaking know what happened. And so Peter graduates and sees that Mary Jane and Flash are no longer a thing because, you know, Mary Jane can't deal with Flash's bullshit anymore. But, you know, she's like, But Peter decides to try and take a shot at crime fighting and comes up with the perfect suit in order to become Spider-Man. And again, he does the origin so beautifully in this movie.
Absolutely.
And we get to see what Peter's up to in high school and whatnot. Oh. And, or what were you going to say?
There was one scene, the graduation scene. One little detail I wanted to point out that I love. When Norman comes to congratulate Harry, he's like, well, I've been proven wrong once again. Gives him a typical handshake, and then Norman immediately goes right to Peter, and he's like, I'm so proud of you. I know it's been tough for you, but I want you to have a good time. I love that scene because, like, even in Harry's, like, facial reaction, he's like, that crappy congrats I got from my dad is all I'm ever going to get from him. And he realizes that, like, basically, Peter is Norman's favorite person, that he likes him more than me, his own son.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about Harry and Peter's relationship as it eventually fractures throughout the trilogy of Spider-Man movies. But yeah, a big thing in this movie is Norman basically viewing Peter more as a son than he does Harry.
Yeah, because they have a lot more in common.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just like, man, that sucks. But, yeah, and of course Harry's a little hurt about that. And of course, later on, we see, like, Harry sporting glasses to try and impress his dad. And, yeah, it's just kind of sad. Like, Harry's a very sad character in these movies.
Yeah, you relate to him as well. A lot of people you relate to, not just Peter.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, so Peter begins to be Spider-Man and gets all over the news. We get a little montage of people reacting to Spider-Man, which is pretty funny because there's some people like this Asian lady singing very badly about Spider-Man. We see Jim Norton, the comedian, talk about how he doesn't like Spider-Man, which is pretty funny too. And he's like, he stinks and I don't like him in the, you know, angry New York way. And then this goth woman's like, a guy with 8 legs is pretty hot. Or 8 arms. Which is hilarious.
I love that scene where it like shows everyone's like opinions or thoughts on the new Spider-Man. He's like, Jim Norton, like, he stinks and I don't like him. The other chick, guy with 8 hands. And there's a guitarist singing like, Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
Yeah, singing the infamous Spider-Man theme from the 60s. Oh, jeez. But yeah, so Peter becomes Spider-Man and becomes kind of like a local sensation. And then eventually, or no, I think at first, the first scene we see is Peter's walking around and he sees Mary Jane. They just happen to cross each other's paths at some point. And
ahead. Kind of getting ahead.
Oh, we are getting ahead?
After we see Peter, everyone's thoughts on the new Spider-Man, we see the full look at Spider-Man's costume, which is glorious. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we see the great JK Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh, man. This is the one part I've been really excited to get into. I mean, I've been excited for this whole thing, but again, like top 5 casting choices of all time. J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. He is glorious in this role. Like, you have to watch. Like, it's like, you can't replace this. Like, that's why they brought him back in the MCU. It's like, you can't replace something that's already perfect. Like, this dude is just, it's so good.
No, like, every time I rewatch Spider-Man and it gets to, like, our first, like, J. Jonah Jameson's first appearance, I just smile because J.K. Simmons is, like, beyond perfect in that role. He is J. Jonah Jameson, like how Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. He is J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh my God, yeah, and he meets, and of course Peter is looking for a job since, you know, he's perpetually poor, and he can't really do much, so he's like, I'm gonna go try and get a job. And he ends up going to the Daily Bugle, and he meets the icon himself, J. Jonah Jameson. And again, oh man, he's so good in this, and he's like, oh, she got some photos, huh? And he looks at him, crap, make it crap. I'll give you $200 for him. And
man,
and he just like, I'll give you $200. And Peter is just like, okay. And then Jameson talks about how he thinks Spider-Man's a menace. And then and then Peter is like, sir, that's slander. And he's like, that's not slander. Slander is spoken. If it were in print, it'd be libel.
No, that was when Green Goblin like attacked the Daily Bugle.
Oh yeah. And Peter is just like, okay, thanks, like I appreciate it. And Robbie takes more of a shine, and we get to meet the Daily Bugle cast, and again, another couple of memorable characters. I mean, of course, J.K. Simmons is like the big guy in this movie because he's like, oh man, he's so perfect as J. Jonah Jameson. But we also meet Betty Brant. She's pretty memorable. Ted Raimi's character, I forget that guy's name, but Ted Raimi, Sam Raimi's brother, he plays one of the employees. He's basically like J. Jonah Jameson's like right-hand guy in some ways.
Yeah.
And like him and J. Jonah Jameson, him and J.K. Simmons have a lot of great scenes together throughout the throughout the movies. I love their relations, relationship throughout the Raimi movies, and the entire cast as well. Betty Brant, which I had no idea Elizabeth Banks played her until I was like, that's Elizabeth Banks. And Bill Nunn, rest in peace, who plays Robbie, who basically defends Spider-Man. He's like, he pulled 6 people out that subway. He's a hero. And then J. Jonah is like, no, he's a menace. He's a menace. Yeah, he's J. Jonah Jameson, being the stubborn ass that he is. He's just like, he's a menace. He's a menace. Yeah. And yeah, he basically gives Peter a job after firing him a minute earlier. But you know, it's like, you're fired. I'm like, no, go get some pictures.
This is funny. You're fired. Oh, you're fired again.
No, you're hired again. Now go get photos. You know. So Peter decides to move into an apartment since he got his new dough from J. Jonah Jameson with Harry. So yeah. After him going to get a job from J. Jonah Jameson, the legend. I love JK Simmons in these movies. Like,
oh yeah,
it's like in this movie, you think everything is gonna be like great, like it's great so far, and then it just gets way better. It's like Sam Raimi and the crew just like, how are we gonna better ourselves? Like, how are we gonna do this? Like, just and then JK Simmons just is like, hold my beer. I'm gonna be the most iconic character ever. he just gets it, man. I love it.
Oh yeah, like I said, perfect.
The casting in this movie is phenomenal, man. I gotta repeat that.
Oh yeah, the casting, as I said, almost perfect.
Oh my lord! Like, I don't think there's hardly a miss in this series, at least in the first two movies. In the third one, again we'll get to that. But oh my god. But then we end up going to yet another iconic scene. Like this movie's filled with them. But we see Norman just, you know, kind of having a board meeting. Which, you know, those tend to be pretty boring, and you think, oh, this is going to suck. Like, this movie's been pretty good so far. But even this scene is memorable, because Norman's just, like, sitting around like, yeah, man, we're gonna take over the world. We're going to figure out we're going to get those gliders back, and then we're going to take over the world. And then his guys are like, Norman, look, we love you, man. We love you. But, you've been acting a little suspect lately, so, yeah, we're selling the company, man. You're out. And then Norman just starts throwing a tantrum and just goes like, you can't do this to me. You know how much I've sacrificed?
Oh, man. Willem Dafoe, once again, he really relishes this role.
Oh, my God. He's like, every scene he's in is just like, oh, man. He's menacing, but he captures that, like, over-the-topness, but he's still menacing, you know? And
oh, yeah.
Willem Dafoe does menace very, very well. What were you saying, Jacob?
Oh yeah. Like, he made that scene so entertaining, a lot more entertaining than it should have been, because scenes like that could have been really boring. It could have been handled in a Zack Snydery way or something like that. But no, that was entertaining because of Willem Dafoe's, like, performance. You know how much I sacrificed?
Yeah, and even in this scene, you kind of feel bad for him. At least I do. You're just like, man, that sucks.
Oh, yeah.
Even though he's the
villain.
villain.
To him, well.
Yeah, he's been dealt a shitty hand at the moment. Kind of his fault, but nonetheless. Yeah. But Norman is just very mad over this situation, and I love the little details that Willem Dafoe puts to the character. Like, he'll wipe his mouth when he's like losing control, because it's like him and the Goblin are almost two entirely different people, and he plays them very differently. Like, Norman's kind of more civilized and different, or not different, but he's kind of civilized and he's nice for the most part. And, you know, he seems like you'd probably chat with him for a minute. Like, he seems like a normal guy. But then when he's, like, in Goblin mode, he just goes fucking nuts.
Oh, yeah. When one of the people in the room scene, when he says, "You're out, Norman," and then Norman, like, when he wipes his mouth, and he just whispers to himself, "Am I?" I'm like, oh, this is where he's
Goblin. And another little nice touch in this movie is, like, you see the Goblin just kind of come out for a second, even when he's Norman, like at the Thanksgiving scene, which again we'll get to. But not J. Jonah Jameson. But yeah, Norman's like, "You can't do this to me." That's my Willem Dafoe impression. I can do better, but whatever. I wouldn't say it's the most serious, but he's super pissed about the company ousting him. Which again, just iconic. Like every moment in this movie is just, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And I was like, man, this film is just this movie's so good. Like, we don't deserve this. And so they're gonna sell the company, and then we get to yet another just scene that everyone remembers. The parade scene, the Macy Gray scene, as some people like to call it, because there's Macy Gray, who's the singer, which I never even knew what her name was until like years later. I'm just gonna admit that right now. I'm just like, oh, it's just some singer. Cool, whatever.
I didn't even know who she was until Chris Stuckman said her name. I was like,
yeah,
oh,
same.
Macy Grace.
Oh, that's who she is. Okay. But yeah, just Peter's there, and he's just like hanging out, and I think he meets Stan Lee there. I know Stan Lee is at the party, but I think see people make a difference either in 2 or 3, because I don't think it's in the first movie.
No, he makes like one very quick cameo where a part of a building is like falling down, and he's like, "Look out!"
Oh yeah.
He grabs a kid in the first one. He grabs the kid in the first one, and he just runs off.
Yeah, and so then they see, oh, what's that? And there's again, I like how they build up the Goblin, and they see like that menace. And it's like, here he comes. It's like really, like the suspense builds and like, oh, what is that? And everyone's like, and then at first, and he's like doing tricks, and everyone's like, oh, cool. And then you realize this guy's in here just to do tricks. This guy's like a legitimate psychopath.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, this is no, that's later. But Norman's just, or not Norman, but the Goblin's just like, and just starts blowing shit up. Excuse me.
And you're like, oh shit.
And Peter is staring at it very intensely. He's like, oh no, what's this? And Goblin is just blowing shit up, and he starts like terrorizing everybody, and they see the board members over there. And then Harry's over there, and he's dating Mary Jane now, and he's like, oh, hey, why are you wearing this, like, Indian-looking dress? My dad likes black, you know? And then Goblin shows up. And Goblin shows up, again, very menacing, and then starts blowing shit up. Jacob, what were you saying?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. When Goblin shows up, that's where he wreaks havoc.
Oh, yeah. And then he, like, goes up and sees the board members, and he says, ow, am I? And he just throws the Goblin bomb, which this is probably the only moment where I'm like, okay, this is a little goofy, but again, you know, Spider-Man, superhero movie, kind of goofy. I just roll with it, and they just become skeletons.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, it's like, you know what? I'll roll with it. And,
oh, yeah. Yeah. They all just sit.
Yeah, there's all, like, sitting there terrified, and he, like, blows them up. And then Harry gets knocked out. And then Green Goblin, like, Willem Dafoe's really good at hamming it up in this movie. And he hams it up in a way where it's not, like, super ridiculous. But it's like, menacing. And it's fun, but it's not, like, super ridiculous.
Yeah, he delivers it, he delivers that menacing and, like, terrifying side of Green Goblin perfectly. It doesn't come off as cheesy or, like, hammy.
I mean, he does ham it up a little, but it's not, like, too bad.
Oh, yeah, just, like, the cheesy, like, as you said, he hams it up, to correct myself.
And again, you can tell that Willem Dafoe's just having a great time, and apparently he did most of the stunts himself, which, you know, mad respect right there.
Yeah.
Because that Green Goblin suit looks pretty uncomfortable. Oh, sorry, man.
Chris Stuckman said that Willem Dafoe did about 90 to 95% of the stunts, which is, like, really impressive.
Yeah. And I don't know how old Willem Dafoe was. I think he was, like, in his mid-40s at this point. Like, he's in his 60s now, but yeah, that's impressive. So Peter just sees this chaos happening, and then we see, Peter. This is clearly an homage to the original Superman movie. I am not crazy here when I say that, but when he like pulls off he's running and he pulls off his clothes to reveal Spider-Man, like that's totally a Superman nod. Like I can't just not see that being like a nod to the original Superman movie.
Oh, without a doubt, that is definitely a nod to the old Superman movies.
Yeah, except he doesn't go into a phone box.
No.
And then everyone's like, oh no, what's going on? And then Harry gets knocked out, and of course Mary Jane is freaking out. And then the Green Goblin just like shows up and is like, hello, my dear. And she just starts screaming. And he's like, it's Spider-Man! And then he like runs up and just kicks the crap out of him. And then he falls into the, I don't know, it's a tent, I think.
Yeah.
But yes, so they end up having a fight, and again, the violence in this movie, pretty intense.
Oh yeah, you can really feel the sweat.
Oh yeah, like they're like legit just punching it. Like the punches look like they hurt, you know. And even when especially when it's Green Goblin, like he's wearing like this pure metal suit, like that shit looks like it hurts. Like you can just like I always wince every time he punches somebody in that suit because you can just like feel he's just like you know.
Oh yeah, you can definitely feel like the impact on like when someone's punching someone. You're like, oh, that must hurt.
Especially later on, but again, and of course, again, this movie is one of my favorite bits about this movie is that it's not afraid to have fun, and this fight scene is awesome. I'm just gonna get that out of the way. It's awesome. It's in the best. Oh, sorry.
No, it is like chef's blow kiss.
Yeah, and he's just like. And I love when he pulls up out of and he's like, ugh, and he's like hulking up, and so I love his response when he just says, "Oh boy," like I always use that line too when like something's about to happen. I'm just like, "Oh boy," and he just starts, and the cops are like, "Freeze!" and he's like, "I surrender," and he's like, "Oh boy," and he just starts beating the crap out of these cops. And you're like, "Oh my god!"
Like, oh man.
It's so good. It's so good. And Peter and Norman end up having a fight, and he just like throws his punch, and Goblin just catches it, and he's like, impressive, and just throws him across, and just like breaks all these glasses, and he like falls on this pole, and he ends up knocking it over. And I always thought this was hilarious. Just knocks out this poor fat cop who's just trying to enjoy his donut. Like, I always feel bad for that cop. I'm like, damn, I hope he didn't, like, die. Because, like, that was a pure metal right there. That could have killed him.
Yeah. Like, he was just enjoying his donut.
He just fell and hit him. Sorry. Collateral damage. But, yeah, Peter ends up fighting Norman for a little bit. He ends up fighting Goblin a little bit. Goblin kicks his ass, and then Peter kicks his ass a little bit. And then Norman and then he pulls out the little glider thing, and ends up fucking the glider up. And he ends up flying, flip-flopping, and he's all like, gives the old famous supervillain line where he's like, we'll meet again, Spider-Man! And then he flies off.
Yeah, like, when a villain says that, you really have to deliver that line really well.
Yeah,
and
I love his
Willem
delivery in that
Dafoe
scene where he's like howling it.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so everyone is just freaked out. Oh yeah, Mary Jane in her first outing as somebody save me! She ends up falling, and Peter does this impressive just bounce thing where he just jumps up and catches her, and then ends up saving her. It's like this big dramatic scene, and it's like you feel really good. You're like, yeah, here you go, Peter. And Peter just saves her and is like, oh, there you go. And then some guy's like proposing to his girlfriend in the side, and she's all like, oh, thanks for saving my life. And then he's all like, oh, who are you? And he's all like, you know who I am. He's all like mad trolling too, and he's all like, you know who I am. Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and he just like jumps off the side. And Mary Jane's just in awe, like, oh, it's so romantic. Oh my god.
Oh yeah. Then we cut right to Harry talking to MJ on the phone, and MJ, from what we know, is just gushing over Spider-Man, and he's like, incredible. What do you mean he's incredible?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Jameson has a field day with this terrorist attack, and he completely dubs this new villain the Green Goblin. So you're like, yep, you know what, it works. And I forgot to mention this.
He's like,
sorry.
Oh yeah, he's like, Green Goblin, I like that.
Yeah, I love when they come up with the names. It's like this big thing, and his Ted Raimi's just like, oh yeah, how about Doc, or not, that's in Spider-Man 2, but he's all like, the Green Menace, and he's all like, no, the Green Goblin, yes, haha, that's very good. And then there's that slander libel scene that I was talking about earlier.
Oh yeah. Where J. Jonah is once again just bashing on Spider-Man, and Peter, like, that's slander. And he's like, it is not. Slander is spoken.
In print, it's libel.
And then Peter says, you don't trust anybody, that's your problem. And then J. Jonah, the great old JJJ, he says, I trust my barber. Oh, man.
Oh, wait, what'd you say? You kind of cut out there a little bit.
I did?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, yeah, when, as I said that when Peter, slander is spoken, print is libel, and then Peter says, you don't trust anybody, that's your problem. And then JJJ, the great old J. Jonah Jameson says, I trust my barber.
I just thought you said something else to sound like you cut out. So you just said you trust his barber? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so then we get to another just scene where Norman ends up discovering that he is not alone in his house. And it's kind of a creepy scene, too, because Norman's just like, he's like, of course, Norman's just completely oblivious to what's going on. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention before we get to the scene, there's some people who've complained about the costume for the Green Goblin. Called it looking like a Power Ranger suit. Which, yeah, whatever, it kind of does look like a Power Ranger suit, but I don't mind it.
No, I actually like it. Comic book movie. It is a silly-looking suit, but it's better than another great Chris Duckman quote, Dave DeHaan with face herpes.
Precisely. Ugh.
Like,
God. Fucking hate Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man 2. I don't hate the movie, but Jacob does. Again, we'll get to that. But, oh man. So, yeah, it does kind of look like a Power Ranger suit, but you know what? This is a superhero movie. It's kind of goofy. That's part of the job, I don't have an issue with it, for the most part.
Exactly. It's a comic book movie.
Yeah.
Like, if If it looks like a Power Ranger suit, so be it.
Plus, I think it would have looked better than just like him wearing some like Halloween costume. That would have looked fucking weird.
Yeah, with green face paint.
yeah, that would have looked weird. But you know, I digress. But back at Norman's house, I was getting to the scene. But this is just basically, hey, we're gonna show the range of not Norman Osborn. We're gonna show the range of Willem Dafoe, and I bet Sam Raimi's just like, hey, Willem, here's the script, just do whatever you want, and Willem just goes to the balls with it.
Oh yeah.
Like across the mirror, like you think they're two different people. Like it's so good. You're like, oh man.
Oh yeah. Willem Dafoe, like he's so fucking phenomenal in this movie.
Yeah, he's like, so many good things are happening. He's all like, or I forget exactly what he says. But then he looks at them, he's like, you did this. We did this. He's like, we? You remember that accident at the lab? And he's all like, oh, God.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. When he attacks the Daily Bugle, he grabs J. Jonah Jameson, and he's like, who's the photographer that takes pictures of Spider-Man? This is one little thing, another detail I like. J. Jonah Jameson, despite him being a stubborn asshole, like, he's not willing to, like, just, like, give up Peter. Just like, oh, he's Peter Parker. He's like, I don't know who he is. This stuff comes in the mail. And then Goblin's calling bluff on him. He's like, you're lying.
Yeah, it's a good scene. But let me backtrack a little bit. But back to the split personality scene. It's basically the split personality cajoling him into getting Spider-Man's attention and trying to, get Spider-Man to join him. And Norman's like, okay. Despite the fact he's, of course, horrified by everything. But, yeah, so... so Norman... Of course, like, J. Jonah Jameson and everyone's just chilling at the, There is a little plot hole here, like, wouldn't Norman just check the newspaper and see, oh, it's Peter Parker, cool. They didn't think of that? Is that mentioned in the movie? That might be a little plot hole.
No, yeah, that's a little nitpick, like, you could have just checked the newspaper. Oh, Peter Parker. Okay, let me go find him.
I'll go find him and ask him. But I think his plan was to get Spider-Man on his side, so it's like, it doesn't really matter. So maybe it's like the explanation was he didn't really care who Spider-Man was.
Nah, like a little side thing, just like,
So
I'll see who takes the Spider-Man.
Of course, the legend himself, J. Jonah Jameson, is just chilling at his throne. It's just like, he's like, yeah, like, I'm ruling the world, baby. And then I love this scene. He just blows up the plate, which the Goblin does this a lot in these movies, in this movie. He just blows up the building, and just picks up Jameson. He's like, Jameson, you slime, where's the... He's like, who's the guy who takes the pictures for Spider-Man? He's like, I don't know who he is, he's in the mail! And like, it was what Jacob described. But yeah, nice little detail that, J. Jonah Jameson might be a dick, but you know what? He's not going to give up his employees. So, respect.
Yeah. He he's a person. He actually has a heart. He's not just, like, this cold-hearted asshole.
Yeah. I mean, he may be a dishonest dick, but, he's not going to give up Peter. He's like, I'm not doing that.
I'm not selling him out.
And then Spidey shows up, and he's like, hey, what's going on over here? And then of course, J. Jonah Jameson goes right back to stubborn ass. He's like, I knew you two were working together. And then he shoots like a web right on his face. I was like, ugh.
Oh, yeah. And we get another Spider-Man quip. He's like, hey, Jonah, let Mom and Dad talk for a minute, will you?
He's like, hey. Yeah. And... This scene always was really funny to me. He just, like, sprays him with this sleeping gas. He's like, sleep. It's, like, so weird. You're like... He's like, okay. I remember Doug Walker describing it as he just passed gas. Right when he said, yeah. I always think of that now when I see the movie.
Oh, yeah. Like, you expect him to, like, throw like a bomb that like just like makes him fall asleep, but no, he just like shoots it out of his wrist. He's like, sleep.
And then it's like, and then Spider-Man's like, oh, I got it's like, oh no, don't tell me I got roofied again. And then, you know, then we get the rooftop scene where the Goblin is just like, you want to be a hero? It'll just bring you pain, and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Norman, or as the Goblin, offers Peter his place by his side, but Peter refuses. So that happens, and Peter's like, I'm not joining you. You're fucking crazy, and I'm a good guy, so I'm not gonna do that. And Goblin's like, all right, think about it, and then he like flies off.
Oh yeah, and another. He says a line in this, which is like so true. He says, in spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you. Why bother?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that line. Thanks, Jacob. I appreciate you.
I got you.
But yeah, he basically is like... And that actually happens in Spider-Man 2, I think, or is it... In 3, yeah, the Eddie fakes the photo, but I think in 2 even, they're like, man, you suck.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it was in this movie. I don't remember exactly. It was in one of the Raimi movies. Oh, God. My eye's scratchy for some reason. So, then Thanksgiving comes, and, you know me. I fucking hate Thanksgiving. I'm just gonna get that out of the way. My personal animosity towards Thanksgiving. But yeah, as a picky eater, Thanksgiving is extremely painful. Of course, it's in between my two favorite holidays, so it's just like, ow. So it's Thanksgiving, and Peter ends up trying to help people, or Spider-Man tries to help people out in this burning building. And, so Peter breaks into this burning building, trying to save as many people as he can. He thinks he sees this old-ass lady, and, surprise, it's the Goblin, and he just goes like, rah! And just like another jump scare, like, oh, fuck! And he just like punches him right in the face, and he just launches him across the room. He's like, damn.
Oh, yeah. Another great action scene.
Oh, yeah.
Intense one.
Oh, yeah, the action in this movie is really good.
Oh, yeah. I will say, the thing I love about the action is that Sam Raimi doesn't rely on CGI. He's not over-reliant on it. No trash on CGI, but this movie's mostly practical.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, there's stuff that's obviously CGI, but aside from that, it's pretty much practical for the most part.
Yeah.
But,
it's there.
Yeah, they have this big fight, and, they have, like, this fight. They also spout some goofy dialogue, like, you're either with me or against me. He's like, you're either in or you're out. And he's like, you're out, Gobby. Out of your mind. It's like, that's... Oh, man, that's funny. Back to this film isn't afraid to be goofy, because, it's like, it embraces its goofy origins.
Yeah, which is why people respect the Raimi movies, or at least the first two.
Yeah. Like, there's Goofy, and then there's Spider-Man 3. Alright, I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Spider-Man 3 is going to be interesting when we get it, when we get to that movie.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, but, so... Peter... Or, hold on. Peter doesn't want to join Goblin. He's like, you're out of your mind. I'm not joining your ass. Then he gets a cut on his arm. And you're like, nasty. Which again, the violence in this movie looks pretty intense. Like, it's like, But then, Peter ends up going somewhere and getting some stuff. And, oh yeah, he sneaks back into his room. And, there's this really after the fire scene, Peter scrambles back to his apartment to get because him and Harry are having a little get together for Thanksgiving, and there is so much tension in that scene. Like I gotta mention that right now. Like when he shows up, and then Norman is all fucked up and sweaty.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Jacob, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Oh, okay, good. I'm like, but yeah, Norman's all like, "Hey, man." No, Norman doesn't say that. Or Norman shows up and he's all sweaty, it's all get out, and he looks awful. Let's just put it that way.
Oh yeah.
Like being the Green Goblin, not a fun thing to do with your time.
No.
And yeah, you can see like the kind of physical deterioration. He's just all sweaty and, ugh, you know.
Mhm.
And there's also a lot of suspense when Peter shows back up to the house, and like he's all in his Spider-Man garb, and she's like, "Oh, I wonder where Peter is," and he's all like up in his room. He's on the roof, or he's on the ceiling, and you know Norman comes in, and that's suspenseful as all get out because you can kind of see the Goblin in his eye when he's looking around for Peter.
Mhm. Like like he immediately switches to the Goblin, especially when a drop of blood just falls on the floor.
Yeah, and he's like, interesting, you know.
Mhm.
And of course, wait, is the upside down kiss scene after this scene or before this scene?
Oh, yeah, it was before the when Peter rescues the fire.
Oh shit! Yeah. I totally forgot about that. I also forgot to mention the Mary Jane scene where she and Peter, or I did mention it earlier, but it's a scene where she's a waitress and Peter's like, "Oh," which there's this funny bit where her boss is like this fat like Hawaiian guy just starts yelling at her about her whatever. Me and Cameron used to watch that, and we would always just laugh. Like, I don't know why, that's just funny. He's just yelling at her.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, "Hey!"
We should have brought Cameron.
Oh, man, that would have been fun. Yeah, bring Cameron along.
Yeah. No, that scene I also thought was funny.
But yeah, and then it comes to the whole motif of "Don't tell Harry," which happens a lot in this movie. Poor guy. Ignorance is certainly not bliss.
Yep.
And then we get to the scene, the iconic upside down kiss scene. It's raining, and Peter's like, he's encouraging her because she wants to be an actress. I forgot to mention that. And Peter's all like, "Yeah, I think you can do it, man." And she just tells him the iconic, "Go get him, Tiger." And Peter's like, "Cool." And he like kind of wanders off, and then you see some thugs getting the little it's not fun. We'll put it that way. Do not have good intent.
No. And Peter's like, "Okay, gotta keep an eye on them."
And then Peter sees them coming towards her. You can just see he's all flipped out, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna beat some ass." And then Mary Jane gets harassed by these guys, and he's just like, "Yeah," and they're all like, "Yeah, we're gonna have a good time with this one." And of course, Peter's comes in as Spider-Man, saves her, beats all those guys up, and then almost gets his mask torn off. I remember that.
Oh yeah, he was he was unmasked while fighting the guys. Then like he switches upside down.
Yep. And she's all like, "I think I have a superhero stalker," and he's all like, "I was just in the neighborhood," which is something he said her. I would have suspected it was Peter right there if I were Mary Jane, Because he said that like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
But I digress.
Like, are you Peter? Because I had a friend who just said that to me like a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I would have been like, Peter? He's like, what? How do you know? I mean, who's Peter? That kind of scene. But no, I would have been at least a little like, interesting. But, yeah, so Mary Jane is, of course, grateful that he saved her life again. And, they have the iconic upside-down kiss in the rain scene.
Oh, yeah. Any superhero that wants to get the girl, this is how you do it.
Oh, yeah, it's like the most iconic just superhero gets the girl moment of, like, all time. Aside from when Superman flipped back time in order to save Lois Lane in the original Superman movie.
Yeah. No, that scene alone, like, I remember Shrek 2 did a little reference to that, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an iconic scene, the score, the atmosphere, not really the atmosphere, but just the acting of the scene, it's just so good.
Oh, yeah. If there's one word to describe Spider-Man, it's iconic.
Oh, yeah. Like, this is an iconic movie. This and Spider-Man 2.
Mm-hmm.
Which we'll touch upon next week, and we're like, damn. It's like, hold my beer, Spider-Man, because I'm going to make a way better movie. But back to the Thanksgiving scene. So, okay. So, Norman is kind of, I don't know, he's in this is why I question if it's a split personality or if it's just like the crazier part of Norman that he kind of keeps capped inside, which it could be either or. But, but Norman is kind of, he has hints of the Goblin. Like, the little touches that Willem Dafoe does, where he, like, takes a little quick bite of the turkey and then Rosemary Harris just smacks his hand. And he gives her, like, that, I'm gonna finish her nice and slow look. But then Peter shows up, and another iconic line, just like, I had to beat an old lady with a stick to get this.
Another great line.
Another little great line. I had to beat an old lady with a stick to get this. I forget exactly what he had in his hand, but I think it was like jam or something. So yeah. So little nice touch there. Peter is wearing Norman's colors, Green Goblin's colors. Norman is wearing Spider-Man's colors, and Harry is wearing both of their colors, which I felt like I had to mention.
Oh yeah, Chris Stuckman pointed that out, and I was like, I did not notice that. That's a nice little detail.
Yeah, it's like, so if Chris Stuckman ever watches this, thanks for helping us with this review, because he really illustrated some things we probably wouldn't have noticed otherwise.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Chris.
But yeah, it's actually a surprisingly subtle scene, because this is a scene where Norman realizes that Peter is Spider-Man, because he sees the cut on his arm. And of course, Aunt May's like, "Oh no, Peter, where'd you get that?" And he says like some kid on a bicycle sliced him while he was walking around. And then Norman's like, "Yeah, where'd you say you got that again?" And he's like, "Some dude with a." He's like, "Yeah, some guy on a bicycle sliced me." He's like, And yeah, then he realizes Peter's Spider-Man, as if he didn't realize that before when he saw the blood drop down. But nonetheless, I'm nitpicking. What do you think of this scene, Jacob?
Just like
where Norman realizes he's Spider-Man.
The tension in it when you realize that Norman knows that he's Spider-Man when he sees that cut on his arm, and then Peter tries to say like, "Oh, bike messenger knocked me down," and I'm like, "Oh shit, he's Spider-Man," and then he immediately just leaves.
Yeah, then he's all like, I'll see you later. And then him and Harry have a little scuffle where he's just like, hey, Mary Jane's nice. He's like, yeah, that's how they always start. And he's acting all like, he's being all weird. And he's like, that's how they always start. But then they'll start going after your trust fund. And he's just being bitter. We get to see that Norman, I wouldn't say he's like abusive or anything, but he's not like, well, no one's perfect, but he's not like he's good intentioned. I think he loves Harry, but he just doesn't show it correctly.
No, he doesn't show it as much. He shows it more to Peter because him and Peter have more in common. But he does love Harry and basically kind of looking out for him when Harry says the nice girl, and he's like, that's how they all are until they trap you or something like that.
Yeah, it's like it's good intentioned advice, but it's coming from like a really kind of mean, spiteful place. Like it comes off as really mean.
It comes off kind of aggressive, as you said. Like he doesn't know how to show his love for Harry.
Yeah, he only shows it like once in the movie. It's just kind of sad.
It is.
But yeah, so Thanksgiving was super awkward. Mary Jane gets pissed off at Harry. I forget why, but Harry and her have an argument, and she just goes away. She leaves. And then May's like, oh, I'll see you later, Peter. And he's like, okay, cool. Oh yeah, so in the Green Goblin's his little hobby of blowing shit up and making an entrance, Aunt May is praying, and this scene also just kind of got me when I was a kid. He just blows right in there and just traumatizes this poor old woman. He's just like, and she's like praying, and he's all like, finish it! Yeah. And I think she's saying the Lord's Prayer too. It's like really fucked up. You're just like, damn.
Oh yeah. You forgot the one scene where basically Norman and Green Goblin are discussing.
Oh yeah.
He has the Goblin's helmet is on his chair, and he's like, Spider-Man is old but invincible, but Parker, we can destroy him. And Norman's like, no, I can.
Yeah, that is a little thing, because in the movie he kind of comes off as cold at first, but then he kind of starts getting all freaked out over what he's doing. I don't know, it just always seemed kind of inconsistent to me. It's still a great performance, but it's kind of he seemed kind of like a dick at first. He's not like a bad guy or anything, but he kind of comes off as dickish. But then he starts shirking a little bit, and he's all like, oh no! What am I gonna do? That's kind of little nitpick there, but it's just kind of something that's always kind of bugged me.
Yeah.
So yeah, he just blows up into the house and just traumatizes Aunt May.
Yeah, traumatized.
Yeah, and then she starts freaking out, and she's all like, "Oh, those eyes, those horrible yellow eyes!" And then Peter's like, oh, shit. And then he comes to the realization, oh, shit, he knows who I am. No other reason he'd go terrifying this old woman rather than, oh, he knows I'm Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah. Mary Jane shows up, and they have a little heart-to-heart again. And Mary Jane's like, man, I really like that Spider-Man guy. And she's like, Peter, you take his photos. Has he ever asked about me? And he's all like, sure. And then they have a moment, and they hold hands, and then, of course, Harry shows up, and it's really awkward.
Oh, yeah. And then Peter just says, hey.
Yeah, like a total goober. He's just like, oh, hey, what's up, man? And then Harry's like, mm-mm, and just walks away. So he goes home, back to his dad. Oh, God. And they're both, I always love they're wearing black sweaters. Like, it's just like daddy-son look-alike day or something at their house. That's just so funny to me. You know, he's like, hey, Dad, what's up? And he's all like, hey, Harry, you look like shit. And he's all like, yeah, I saw Mary Jane and Peter, they were holding hands. I think she likes him. And, of course, you know that GIF of the Grinch just smiling, the, like, ridiculous, that smile from the Grinch Steals Christmas cartoon?
Oh, yeah.
Basically, Norman just does that, and he's just like, oh, really? Oh, that's just too bad. And then he actually kind of steps up a little bit, and he's like, you know what? I love you, son. I know I haven't really shown you that much, but I'm going to try and do better. And then Harry's like, oh, cool, finally. And then they, like, hug it out.
Mm-hmm.
But Norman just has that whole, oh, really? Oh, that's tough. Oh, man. I'm sorry, son. Wink, wink. Like, I'm gonna fuck Spider-Man's life up. And, of course, Peter ends up having this nightmare of Green Goblin, another jump scare for the crowd. And,
oh, man.
Aunt May wakes him up, and she's calm now. I'm surprised I guess she's calmed down a little. She's like, hey, Peter, how you doing? And he's all like, oh, God, you should be resting. And she's like, don't worry about me. You're not Superman, you know. And I guess DC Comics exists in this universe? I don't know. That doesn't matter. They have a little heart-to-heart, and there's this really cute scene where she's just like, I remember when you saw Mary Jane for the first time stepping out of that car, you said, Aunt May? Is that girl an angel? And you're just like, aw, like, that's cute.
Oh, yeah. Little cute scene right there.
And then when Peter thinks about that, he's like, oh, did I say that? And I don't know, Tobey Maguire just has this thing where he just acts oblivious, and he just comes off as just super oblivious. I don't know why, but I just think that's funny.
Oh, it is. Especially in Spider-Man 3.
Oh my God, yeah. And then he just kind of goes like, wait a second. And then he realizes, oh shit. And then he walks over to the phone and then tries to get a hold of Mary Jane. And of course, his worst nightmare comes to fruition. Mary Jane was kidnapped by the Green Goblin, and he's like, Spider-Man, come out to play. And he's all like, where is she? It's actually a legit creepy scene. Again,
oh, yeah.
Willem Dafoe, man. Really killed
Oh, yeah. Great line delivery, too. Like, that was a really, like, little creepy scene right there.
Oh, man. And Peter is, of course, like, oh, shit. So, of course, Green Goblin takes him and a trolley car that's full of kids alongside the Queenborough Bridge, which comes to the final climax of this movie. And then Spider-Man shows up and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing? Stop that!" And Goblin's like, "Well, you spat in my face," or well, he does that later. He says that later. And he's like, all right, I'm going to force you to choose who to save, these kids or your lover here. And then he drops them. And then she's like, nee. And it's like this super dramatic moment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. While the Green Goblin is attacking the bridge, he sings the Itsy Bitsy Spider song.
Oh, yeah. And then up came the Goblin and blew all the shit, or whatever he says. I forget exactly what he said. But yeah, he does sing-song that. Which is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dope. Again, nice little touch from Willem Dafoe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But Peter, being the hero that he is, ends up saving both. He saves Mary Jane and the boxcar filled with children. And man, that scene is very suspenseful.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, God, and he's like going in and like knocking him down and whatnot, and he's still catching it. It's like, oh my God. They're just amping it up, man.
Yep, they're just amping up the intensity. even more.
Oh, man. But luckily, they do manage to save everybody, and it's like, oh yeah, there's also where the civilians start attacking Green Goblin, which... Jacob, like, what do you think about the civilians throwing shit at the Green Goblin? Like, I have my own thoughts, but I want to hear what you think about it.
A part of me, like, likes that, like, the, like, people, like, standing up for Spidey, and, like, one of them actually say, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. But at the same time, it's like, didn't people, like, kind of hate him because of what, don't people, like, kind of hate him because of what the Bugles line said? But, not everyone agrees with, like, the news' opinion, or what the papers say. So, most people are going to be like, we love Spidey, we defend Spidey. I actually like that little scene.
Yeah, I'm, on the one hand, I'm like, you know what? I respect these people's solidarity with Spider-Man. I think it's way better done in Spider-Man 2, but again, we'll get to that when we talk about that movie. But, on the other hand, I think it's kind of corny. Like, I think the scene where the people save Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2 is way better.
Yes.
With the people on the train. Like, I think that's much more, like... I don't know if moving's the right word, but it's, like, way better. Like, it's like, it took itself a little more seriously. Which, again, I say it like, I like the goofiness of this movie, but there's just sometimes it goes a little bit on the edge there.
Oh, wait, the Spider-Man 2 did a way better job, but, I kind of like when, like, civilians, like, stand up for Spidey. That's just, like, me. I might be biased, but I don't give a shit.
Yeah, and Spidey he saves everybody, and Goblin's all pissed off, and then he grabs Peter and just throws him into this abandoned building, which, oh boy, this is the scene I've been waiting to talk about this whole movie. I'm not even gonna lie.
Me too, I've been waiting to talk about this scene.
And, this is just, fuck, Okay, so, Green Goblin throws Spider-Man into this building, and Spider-Man's like, oh, and it just, like, gets thrown around. Could have died right there. He could have died right there. But then he's like, okay. And then, like, his eye socket's showing, there is his little eye part of his costume showing, but then Green Goblin just grabs a bomb, just throws it. Great scene there where it slows down, just goes, boom, and then it throws him through the wall. Ugh.
Oh, man. Like, oh, man.
But then, it gets worse, because then Green Goblin shows up and does his best James Gandolfini. I always think he sounds like James Gandolfini in this part, where he's all like, I offered you friendship, and you spat in my face. And just starts beating the shit out of him. Like,
yeah.
He
gets his ass kicked.
Like, yeah, he gets his ass, like, he mops the floor with him.
Yeah, like, he's bleeding from his face. The Goblin's, like, tearing the shit out of him.
Oh, yeah, like, and Peter's just exhausted. He's just smacking the shit out of him the whole time. And you're like, God damn, bro. Like, chill, bro. Shit.
Man, but I fucking love it. I fucking love it.
I love it, but it's like, God, like, that's hard. Like, that's harsh.
Oh, yeah. That's why I love it, because, like, the whole movie, I love that this movie wasn't just some kiddie fest. It wasn't afraid to get violent at times.
Yeah, it wasn't afraid to take that step, like, hey, we'll get violent. Like, no worries. Or, yeah, I remember the line, misery, 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 that's all you chosen. He's like, I offered you friendship, and you spat in my face. And you just started beating the fuck out of him. You're like, God damn! Like, yeah. Which, again, just the violence in this movie, it looks like it freaking hurts. Like, you're just like, God damn. And then...
Oh, yeah, because it's like the people who are fighting are actually doing it. It's not just some CGI guy flying around.
Yeah, and then he tries to spin a web again, and then he steps on him. It's like this super dramatic moment. And he's like, you've screwed me for the last time, Spider-Man. Or, you've spun your last web, Spider-Man. And he's all like, if you'd have chosen me, maybe I would have let your little girlfriend live, but now that you really pissed me off, he's like, I'm gonna finish her. And nice and slow. And it's like this really just like, oh, fuck this guy. And then Peter just starts hulking out, and you're just like, oh, shit, buddy. And then he's all like, me and MJ are gonna have a hell of a time. And then he just starts, and then he, like, jabs, like, a knife at him. This, like, little thing, I don't know what it is, but then Peter just, like, holds it for a second. It's, like, this big dramatic moment, and he just launches him across, and then he's like, ah, shit.
Oh, yeah.
Peter, I just pissed him off. And let me tell you, like, if I had made a top 10 just fuck yeah moments in movies where the hero just comes back and just fucks the villain's life up, this would be, like, number 1. Just...
Oh, for sure.
He runs over, he starts beating the shit out of him, he pulls a wall down on him, he swings in and just throws him into the wall. It's beautiful. Like, it's like...
I love it.
And he just starts beating the shit. He's giving, like, his whole Tarzan yell. He's just beating the shit out of this guy. It's beautiful. Just like, mwah.
Oh,
I
love it. when I first watched that scene, I was like scared, like, oh no, Spider-Man. But when he comes back up, I'm like, yeah, Spider-Man, all right.
yeah. It's one of those scenes where you just want to get up and just go like, fuck you. Like that. It's like that. It's like, yeah, get him. Yeah. And he mops the floor with the Green Goblin, and it's like the most just like it's cathartic. I'll put it that way.
Oh yeah.
Like the Goblin's been pretty like goofy. Not goof. That sounds bad. But he's been, like, menacing and goofy at the same time. But, like, he's super, like, he's like, oh, fuck no. Like, this dude's, I'm gonna kick this dude. Better kick this guy's ass. And he does. And it's beautiful.
It is.
So, Peter ends up beating the shit out of him. And even makes a clanking sound, which I always like, because you're like, damn. Like, that sounds like that hurts. Again. Just like, ugh.
Like, ooh.
But then he's like, Peter, stop! It's me! And he takes off the mask, and it's Norman, and he's just, like, squirming. I love a little behind the scenes where Willem Dafoe is just, like, I don't know what he's doing, but it's insane. Like, he's just doing his thing, and you're like, oh, God. Ugh.
Like, ooh.
But then he's like, oh, Peter, thank God for you, and he, like, does his whole, like, it wasn't me, it was the Goblin! And, And Norman, of course, has a little trick up his sleeve and is trying to get the glider to hit Spider-Man. He seems to not have watched this entire movie because, Spider-Man has a spider sense. And he's trying to get him to come with him and be his son, which we finally get that son part that we were talking about earlier. And he's like, I had a father. His name was Ben Parker. And then Norman's like, shit. Too bad. And he's all like, Godspeed, Spider-Man. And then he turns on the glider. And then he gets the spider sense. And then Peter just, just jumps over. And I love when it's about to come towards him, he's just like, oh. Thunk. It's like,
Oh, yeah. He's just like, oh.
And then it just impales him. And it's like,
and then
And it's like, that looks like the most painful shit ever. I'm just gonna point that out.
In the worst way to die possible.
And Norman, like, Willem Dafoe again, he really sells it. Like, he looks like he's in agony.
Oh yeah, just like in pain.
Yeah, he's like, and there's like blood spilling out of his mouth. Like, it's bad. Like, damn, Spider-Man, like you're really going places. Like
yeah, like
it's fun, but it's not afraid to get dark, like you were saying earlier, which I like. I respect that.
Yeah, Sam Raimi doesn't hold back on the violence, which is why I love this movie so much. One of the reasons why.
Yeah, and then Norman just kind of goes, and then Norman, before he dies, he just looks around and then he just tells Peter, "Don't tell Harry," and then just dies. And it's a really sad scene. You're like, man, it's sad. Till we get to far from home, which says somehow he evaporated. I don't know. We'll get to that. But yeah. So Norman dies, and he asks Peter not to tell Harry about what he did. And Peter's like, cool. Then he takes him back to the Osborne's house, and Harry ends up seeing this and ends up thinking that Spider-Man killed his dad. For whatever reason. But that's one thing. That's a little irrational. Like, have we heard of Spider-Man killing anyone up to this point? But whatever. That's besides the point. But that's a great scene. You can definitely see the anger in James Franco, but also the sadness. He gets his gun and points it at him, but he's gone. And then the movie is about to end, and Peter is at Norman's funeral, and Harry is also at Norman's funeral. And Harry, of course, is super pissed off, and he's like, I'm going to get revenge on Spider-Man. And then he says, well, all my family's gone, except for you. And it makes you feel even more bad. You're just like, oh my god.
Yeah, like, shit.
Like, this got heavy. I thought this was a fun superhero movie where they punch people. But, I digress. But then Mary Jane shows up as if to add more tragedy to Harry's life. She's all like, hey, I like you. I like you now. And Peter's like, look, I'm sorry. I can't be with you because my villains could try and use you to get to me. He doesn't say that to her, but he's thinking that in his mind. And he ends up seeing Uncle Ben's grave, and he remembers what he said to him, and he ends up accepting his destiny as Spider-Man. The end.
And we get to a final swing, which is beautiful as ever.
Oh, yeah, swinging in this movie is amazing. And in Spider-Man 2 as well. But yeah, that was Spider-Man. This might be our longest episode. We're almost at 3 hours. Oh my god. But, I mean, goddamn. Like, our episodes are usually pretty long, but damn, this movie. But you know what? We love this movie, so I kind of expected this would be pretty long.
Yeah. As you said, this is a mutual childhood favorite of ours.
Oh, man. But yeah, that was Spider-Man. Do you have any thoughts on the final scene before we get to our finishing thoughts?
Oh, yeah. The final scene, just like when Peter's final line, when he's like, I'll never forget these words, with great power comes great responsibility. This is my gift, my curse. Who am I? I'm Spider-Man. Fucking beautiful. And it just, immediately, shoots to him, just like him as Spider-Man. We get a final swing, which is why I love in every Sam Raimi movie, or at least the first two. Just a final swing. That's just like a Spider-Man fanboy moment.
Oh, hell yeah. It's just awesome seeing Spider-Man swing through. And I think that's the perfect way to end this movie. Like, this movie's just an epic 3-act structure.
Absolutely.
And, but yeah, that was Spider-Man. This episode went on a bit long, as usual. But, man. Excellent movie this film is. I didn't rewatch it recently, but when I think about it, I'm like, man, this film's aged well.
Oh, yeah.
For the most part. There's some CG that looks a little wonky in some places, but aside from that, this movie's aged very well. The story of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, coming to terms with his destiny is a timeless one. And also shows that with great power shows great responsibility. I love this movie.
Oh, yeah. This movie, it's a masterpiece in my eyes. Like, it has impacted me in so many ways. This movie got me into comic books. This movie got me into Spider-Man. It got me into films as well. This movie, overall, it has great character depth, really fun action scenes, in beautiful direction. Sam Raimi really honored the character of Spider-Man, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. It's just... This movie's remarkable. And they really came out swinging. And Sam Raimi... I know you got some hate from Spider-Man 3. That's not really fair. That wasn't really his fault. But hey, Spider-Man 1 and 2, you did a great job, my friend. And let me tell you, Spider-Man... I think Spider-Man 2 is a little better, but I still love this movie quite a bit as well.
Oh, yeah. I will say, like, just pure nostalgia, I prefer the first one, but as a just like an overall film, Spider-Man 2, I'd say is better.
Yeah. But yeah, that was our discussion on Spider-Man. And great film, still holds up very well. A perfect combination of comic booky action and compelling melodrama.
Oh,
I mean, not really much else to say. It's a great film.
Yep. And a few dark moments as well.
Yep, I mean,
a
there's...
great bit of everything.
Yep, it's got a bunch of everything. It's got humor. It's got JK Simmons. It's got dark moments. We're good to go, baby. And it's got memes. Oh, we got plenty of memes in this movie. But yes, that was Spider-Man. And we're going to be talking about Spider-Man 2 next week, which, ooh boy.
Oh, yeah.
This, in my opinion, is probably the greatest Spider-Man film, live-action Spider-Man movie ever made. Next week's Spider-Man 2. I mean, this one's really good, but Spider-Man 2 takes it to a whole nother fucking level.
Oh, yeah. I'm just excited to talk about that movie as I was with this one.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, that's just... But yeah, Spider-Man is a classic. Can't wait to get to Spider-Man 2. I can't wait to talk more about Spider-Man in the future, because we're going to try and cover all the Spider-Man movies, at least the live-action ones.
Oh, yeah. I cannot wait.
But, yeah, so this was Spider-Man. We're going to be doing Spider-Man 2 next week. I'm very excited for it.
Oh, me too.
Oh, man. But yes, I've been Britton.
And I've been Jacob.
And this has been Brit and Jake Go to the Movies. Also, don't let your dreams be dreams. I don't know. I need to come up with a better outro.
Show us some love.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, last week I was like, oh man, I'm so grateful for our fans. We got like 500 views. Then I go to our most recent episode, it has like 60. Not that we do this for the views, but keep the views coming. You know, we like those. Yeah. But anyways, I'll check it again to see if it's changed any. But yeah, thank you everyone. You take care. This has been Brit and Jake Go to the Movies. Bye bye. Say bye, Jacob. I'm about to end it.
Goodbye.